Hello again, friends! And you are our friends, and welcome back to another edition of Jim Cornette's Drive Thru right here, wherever it is that you are. I'm not even sure where we are. Kind of in the time warp today. The time machine with Count Drummer and Chris Colt, and of course me, your host, the great Brian Last, and the leader of the cult of Cornette. Feels like we just did this, Mr. Jim Cornette.
Oh, good God, just wind that one up, Brian, for heaven. When it's gone to the point, to the extent that we have to mention Chris Colt and Count Drummer in the podcast opening that we send out to literally millions of people around the world, and four of them just died laughing. We have done this quite often lately. We're in the time warp because we're recording this earlier than we usually do, because this week I have to not only do the cameos that we've sold to the folks this weekend, but also get my second vaccination shot. And so we're doing this early. So we just literally finished the experience, 24 hours? Not even 24 hours ago.
Not even.
And now we're doing this again. So if everyone will bear with us, if we repeat ourselves.
The experience went up not even 12 hours ago.
Yes. And we went down shortly afterwards.
And we're still going.
But I don't know. But anyway, we're going to have fun today. Hey, it's a special day. I've been all day. This is Sunday. All day I've been watching the Crusade for Children on television. I love local television, and this is the classic example of it. You don't have local television anymore anywhere except for the news. I don't know if you're old enough, but when I was just a young toddler, we had all kinds of, everybody did all across the country, but we in Louisville had great local television. You had this weekday morning kids show, T-Bar V Ranch, with the singing cowboy Randy Atcher and his sidekick Cactus Tom Brooks. And they did the Saturday night country music show, Hayloft Hoedown. And you had the cartoons in the afternoon with Presto, the Magic Clown, and morning talk shows for the adults, and Saturday night, the Fearmonger with Fright Night. Now there's no local television.
Go ahead. I was going to say the last great channel in New York that we had that really did that was Channel 9, WOR. And then within a few years, it all changed. But for a while, they were the last ones producing tons of original local content. They had a kids show, Steam Pipe Alley with Mario Cantone. And then they had the Howard Stern Show. Eventually, they had the Richard Bay Show.
What about Joe Franklin?
Joe Franklin, Morton Downey Jr.
Joe Franklin, I've been a fan of his for many years. Mets
baseball. I mean, you don't even get any of the. I mean, you do get some of the games on Channel 11 here, but you get a handful. It used to be tons of local games on local free TV. You don't get that anymore. And Channel 9 was the last big one that had a lot of local TV. And they don't do it anymore, and it's sad.
But now, in the afternoon, we get a 3-hour block of news where they say the same thing every hour, just for the people that are getting off work or just getting home or whatever at that point. But there's no other local television. But the Crusade is special, as I mentioned. And I want to thank everybody. The cameos that we put on sale earlier today, the Sunday, June the 6th, for those of you listening to this by the time it comes out, sold out. And that's $500 going to the Crusade for Children. And next Sunday, June the 13th at noon Eastern, we're going to do 50 more cameos at cameo.com/Jim Cornette. And $10 of each of those will go to the Crusade also. But I thank everybody. I'm sorry for the people that got shut. These things go quickly. So anyway, next Sunday, you've still got another chance before Father's Day to get the cameos. Or you can donate also, we've mentioned, to the Crusade directly at WHAScrusade.org, or the Cult of Cornette members led by the four horsemen of the Cornette Eclipse, SD and Fell and Bagley and Petrie. Fell's the only one that doesn't have a Y after his name. He says sounds like a law firm. But anyway,
it's not SD like SD Jones for the record.
SD.
I think you have to spell that out. Yes.
Yeah. Well, SD Jones.
SD Jones.
Anyway, They're raising money as well on the Cult of Cornette Facebook group. But I'm watching this show today, and I actually went when I was like 4 or 5 years old to see the Saturday night portion of the telethon when they did it at the old Memorial Auditorium downtown. And my mom and dad took me. And I still remember the stage and everything and all the lights where they had the Memorial Auditorium downtown was obviously an older building, but it was for shows and things. It had a stage and everything, and they put all the lights on and had the dancers and blah, blah, blah. But for years, they would do the Saturday night portion of the program was all the local celebrities and Randy Atcher singing and the kids' dance teams from around town and any visiting celebrities, and they would do all of that overnight. And then Sunday morning kicks in the fire departments, which is actually the best part of the show for me. And then after they left the Memorial Auditorium, they went to the WHAS studios downtown, and that was the best shows because everything was from there, and you wouldn't believe the ridiculous amount of people that they would get in this studio. And they couldn't violate any fire laws because every fireman in town was in the studio. But that was the deal. They'd have the outdoor camera on Broadway downtown on Crusade Sunday, and they would constantly cut to the shots, and you knew not to try to drive on Broadway on Crusade Sunday because for hours a steady stream of fire engines and fire trucks and pickup trucks with the lights and the sirens flowing into WHAS, right? And then they one after another they bring them all in, or they would bring them all in, and the kids would have the boots and the buckets with all the money and the change. And they'd read off the names of the people that donated and who it was in memory of and all that stuff. And then they dump the money in the fish bowls. They have the big glass aquariums. They started that when they first started the thing so people on TV could see the money through the glass, right? So they still do it. But anyway, these things were fucking packed, and it was a rib. Don't let anything catch on fire on Crusade Sunday if you're 100 miles from Louisville because all the firemen are downtown. So then it got so big, they had to start doing remote locations in southern Indiana and down south of town to get some of the fire departments in there because they couldn't get into downtown anymore. They had no place to put all those trucks. So anyway, the point is, last year was all fucked up with COVID, and this year now they're doing remote locations in like Walmart parking lots and big fire stations where they've got room and they don't have the big groups anymore, but they've still. It's a big deal for everybody to get on television. And the reason why I love this as local TV is because some of these people have never been on TV in their life. Some of them are only on TV ever the year of, the day of the Crusade every year. But everybody gets their shot. And they will bring in a fire department that donates $125,000. And the next up with the same level of celebrity, one of the WHAS personalities interviewing them is the group of kids from over in J-Town that ran a lemonade stand and have got $72. And so anyway, the best one this morning, there's a fire department in southern Indiana. They've only got one truck, and they had 3 or 4 firemen out there, and then some of the kids, because they have the video of the kids playing on the truck while they're reading these lists to have livelier video. But they've come in and they couldn't do roadblocks. See, the fire departments for a week or two before the Crusade, and it, like I said, has been strange since COVID. They haven't done it as much, but they would do a roadblock at every stoplight or every 4-way stop anywhere around town in the metropolitan area and in their outlying areas. And they got the boot, and throw your change in the boot. It's for the Crusade, right? So this fire department can't do roadblocks because in their district, they have neither a stoplight nor a 4-way stop. They're so far out in the country, they can't do roadblocks. So what they do is they go door to door and knock on everybody's door one at a time in their entire district. If somebody's not home, they leave a tag on the doorknob where they can send their donation in. And so they come in, and this old country guy, he's reading in the most country monotone voice the donations of who gave and who was in memory of, and these folks, they're not TV personalities, so they lose the plot. That's where they get the pictures of the kids playing on the fire truck. But then after that, then he says, and we lost a member of our community this past year, old Joe Brown. He passed away, and he had $23.12 in a jar for the Crusade, and his wife, Bonnie, brought it over to us and wanted to make sure we got it, right? And he starts getting choked up, and then he reveals that the person that all of these people gave money in memory of was their fire chief that passed away last year. And now this old guy's getting choked up, and the tears are coming. And then they announce that this one-truck fire department, without a stoplight or a four-way stop in their district, brought in $23,000. And it's amazing. And then they said last year they did $60-something thousand because one person gave them $50,000. And then they'll leave, and then here comes the tap dancing kids from so-and-so's dancing school that got $15 in nickels. And but in the day when they did everything downtown, think about this, Brian, would this fly in New York City? In the years where they did everything downtown, they had literally hundreds of fire trucks, to the exclusion of all passenger vehicles, flooding downtown, where maybe up to 10,000 different people would wander into the TV station and by the end of the weekend, turn over between $1 and $2 million in cash in pennies, nickels, dimes, quarters, dollars, and fives. And they just carry it off and put it in the bank. Would that fly in New York?
I don't know. I mean,
how would they do that?
You got to remember, we are the nation's major metropolis. So it's a little different than comparing it to a small place like Louisville, Kentucky.
Oh, a small place.
Compared to Manhattan? Yes, it is.
Our metropolitan
compared to Manhattan
population is over 1 million, I'll have you know, Mr.
That's
Fancy Pants.
That's the ass of Manhattan. There's so many people here. And
anyway,
more hoodlums per capita.
Yeah, so that's what I'm thinking. But 10,000 people. 10,000 people bringing $2 million in mostly change over the course of the weekend to Rockefeller Center. How do you think that would turn out?
This is a great movie.
And now they're using technology. When I was a kid, they used to have it. If you'll give more than $25, we'll send a cab to your house to pick it up for free, right? Now they just said, you can just say, Alexa, donate to the Crusade for Children. It's fucking amazing. Anyway. This is an anniversary. Did you know that? As we are recording here today, it is, at least.
June 6th, I did not know it's an anniversary.
June the 6th. June the 6th, 1983 was the loser leave town match between Jerry Lawler and Bill Dundee in the Mid-South Coliseum in Memphis, Tennessee. That was, at the time, one of the two greatest wrestling matches I'd ever seen live, and still to this day, one of the two greatest wrestling matches I was ever at ringside to see that didn't involve the Midnight Express, let's say. Because we got to, I was in the business by then, but all the heels and all the baby faces, they put a special row of front row seats on one side of the ring were the baby faces, the other side of the ring were the heels, and everybody on the card sat ringside and watched that match. And we cheered Dundee on because he was the heel, and the baby faces cheered Lawler. So I got to sit there, because all those years I was a photographer, I got to be leaning on the ring apron for all those great matches. But after I got into business, the only ones I was actually ringside for were ones I was involved in. But this, I got to sit in the best seat in the house. And it's still to that and obviously Lawler and Funk a couple of years beforehand, but they were completely different. Lawler and Funk was the wild, double juice, brawl, crazy, holy shit. And this was the ultimate score-settling final showdown loser leave town match between the two biggest stars of the previous 10 years in the territory, and one of the best displays of pure pro wrestling working I've ever seen in my life. So this, I always remember June 6th and March 23rd. March 23rd, 81 was Lawler and Funk. June 6th, 83, Lawler and Dundee.
Well, June 6th, 2021 is the day we're recording this show, which will be released in a few days. So I don't think anyone will be commemorating this anniversary in a few years.
Hey, you know what? I came up before you go any further, because this is your show, and far be it from me, as I've mentioned many times,
I appreciate
to
that.
disrupt that.
No.
But we talked yesterday on the experience. I've seen more of the clips tweeted of Red Velvet trying to really do a suicide dive from last Friday night's AEW show, where she dove out of the ring and completely bypassed the bunny and landed on her head and folded herself up like an accordion. And we expressed our consternation that and I went back and looked, she was not on the ground 5 seconds. And I said this when we were talking about it, as a booker, I could not have constructed and asked any talent in the world to do this successfully without injuring themselves for a hospitalization angle. And it was a throwaway dive in a TV match that meant nothing, and she popped right up afterwards. And people said, well, she didn't know to sell it. But you have an innate sense, if you've ever been in the ring or done anything, when you've fucked something up or something is or whatever, you hear the people go, woo, sell it for a second and let it fucking marinate, right? But anyway, so as I watched that and I realized she wasn't even down 5 seconds, like I said, she popped up one thing to prove to herself she hadn't paralyzed herself. And also, there's the element, I've seen guys do this a million times. She knew she fucked it up, so she wanted to jump back up. And that way, if she jumps back up and if the people goes, ah, like she did, fires them up, it doesn't look like she fucked up in her mind to them. She's trying to erase the fuck up. But both of them, understandable, but I started thinking about that. Can you imagine, instead of just throwing that away, popping up and continuing on and going another 10 minutes on television, if she had been able to just sense to sell that for 20 seconds or 30 seconds to just lay there because the other girl wasn't in a rush to go anywhere, then I started thinking, what would I have done if I was at the gorilla position, if I was a producer, if I was on the headset, if I was on the referee's IFBs? All the referees are wired. They got an IFB in their ear. That's how you communicate. What would my reaction have been? Obviously, it'd have been, holy shit. And then, see, that's the thing. She didn't even stay down long enough for the referee to go over and do the thing that you see them do where they say, are you fucking all right? And or give the X sign, which is way overdone and been prostituted. But
is there...
go ahead.
Is there any chance, again, I've never done a dive like that, so I don't know anything about how it feels.
Well, I never have either. But
no, but you've been around a lot of it and you've heard a lot of guys talk about it. Is there a chance that she did that, she knew she missed it or didn't hit it right, but she may not realize the way it looked to everyone else, the way she landed? She may not realize what we saw. Is there a chance of that?
Only if these young people's minds are so gone that they are just assuming from the start that everybody is going to instantly hop on her if she fucked up or screwed up or she don't want to get the you fucked up chant or whatever. But you couldn't go that far, head first, onto the floor, crash, bend over backwards, not forward, not in the manner in which your body is intended, but in another fashion, and jump right back up 5 seconds later and not think, my God, that would have probably been a lot more impressive if I'd have laid there. I just can't, because she did. I don't know what was going through her mind. Point being, it doesn't always have to go through the talent's minds if they'd give anything room to breathe. Because that's what would my reaction have been as the producer or at the monitor when that happened? The first thing you do, if somebody, and you see the WWF referees do it quite often, after one of those dives, big bumps, especially if somebody slipped or landed on somebody, you see them go over, right? And it's a referee's job in a shoot to go over. Can you continue? Can you continue? Yes. But they're really doing that because then they give the signal to the back, because the producer is going, check on them, make sure they're okay, any problem, whatever the verbiage they use. And the referee communicates back, no, they can continue, or they fucking get in between and start slowing the thing down to determine what's going on. None of that happened here. I would have said, if she was laying there selling for 20 seconds, I popped on the thing and I would say, this is a fucking chance. Just tell the referee, ring the bell, stop the match. She's hurt. She can't continue. Tell her to stay down. Boom. You've got the fucking button right there. Even in a smaller production, much less WWE and Ring of Honor, I could talk to the announcers. I could talk to the referee. I could talk to the ring announcer. And I could talk to, obviously, I was in the truck, so I could talk to the fucking producer and director. So you can communicate. Stay down. She's hurt. Stop the match. Ring the bell. And all the referees are wired and should be listening if they're not sitting around playing tickle taint. All referees to the ringside. All referees check on red velvet. Then you tell the match referee, tell the opponent, back up, don't attack. You've won. Hold her hand up. Tell her to look shocked. Then you're telling the fucking director what you want to take. They've got a doctor, right? Do they use the doctor that saved Lawler, Samson?
That is their doctor. I don't know if that's the doctor that saved Lawler. It's the same guy. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Send Dr. Sampson to ringside. Tell her we've got a neck injury. That's the way you need to treat it, Doc. Do everything you would do for a neck injury. Now all the other referees are out there. They're hearing this, and then you tell the ring announcer, tell the fans we're going to pause the show. We're going to pause the show to determine how bad this injury is. Please bear with us. Because when that announcement gets made, then the people they think, well, if this was TV, they wouldn't be saying that, because they don't. And you just have the doctor, and then they're in Daly's place, right? I could understand if they were in the fucking ice rink in Belle Vernon, Pennsylvania. They got to have EMTs. They have over 1,000 people there in a public amphitheater. They got to have EMTs or something. If they don't have it, you can't maybe stop down for an ambulance. Who knows how long that might take? But the point is, now you have Doc Sampson, who's a doctor who knows what's going on, but he can call for the EMTs because now he's telling them, hey, we've got a neck injury here, potential neck injury. Now you're telling your announcers, call what you see. It appears to be a neck injury. And then you ask your videotape, how many angles we got on that? Let's put them on the reel and replay them all. And you tell announcers, look for the replays and call them when you see them. By this time, the EMTs ought to be on the way down there. You're telling the referee to tell Doc Sampson, explain to them it's a potential neck injury. We got a backboard if we got a neck brace. They're going to treat this legitimately because they don't want to get sued if it really is. So they're not just going to fucking joke through this if they're real EMTs. Because a doctor's telling them to fucking do it. And then you tell the announcers, we're going to go to break. Tell the people we're going to go to break. This is a developing situation. We'll have an update on the other side. Because they still had another 10 minutes to go, right? So now instead of fucking useless fucking girls TV match fucking bullshit, you've got something going on. On the other side, hopefully by then they've got a collar on, or they've got the board there or whatever, and you use the rest of that segment. They get her up and they wheel her out, and they've already called an ambulance. And then later on in the show, we can shoot the ambulance taking her out the back. You've used up your time, but now you've got something. People are going to go crazy on social media. How is she? What is she? If she can refrain from fucking tweeting pictures of herself doing yoga and calisthenics the next morning, then you've got something. Now you can get this girl over. You leave her off TV for fucking 6 weeks, but every week you replay the dive, and you, after the first week or two and giving verbal updates, then you have video of her, maybe still with a collar on, and her story is, you take risks to entertain the fans, and we all try to be safe, but it's a dangerous occupation that we have, and it's my fault for missing that. I lost control of myself. I was in the moment with the crowd back, and I could have not only really badly injured myself, I could have really badly injured the bunny. And that wasn't fair for either one of us. And thank goodness it was myself instead of her. But I'll tell you what, I've sacrificed too much to get here to go out like that of my own fault, landed on my head. I'm going to come back in better shape than ever, right? And then the next week you show she's in physical therapy. She's doing her rehab, right? And you build up and you advertise the date that Red Velvet is finally going to come back to address the audience live. We don't know when she'll be cleared to wrestle again, but she's going to be here to thank all of you for your support. And the week before she comes back to television, think about this, Brian. You know how everybody's always shooting, because I thought of this day before yesterday. I thought you could do an angle like this. I just didn't apply anything to it. But all these videos you see on Twitter of people with the camera phone when the naked woman in Texas is breaking up the Outback, or the people are climbing over the fucking counter at McDonald's or whatever, right? And some bystander with a cell phone. Well, what about if the week before she's scheduled to be on television, some unknown person tweets a video? They're in a fucking Applebee's or a bar or whatever the fuck, right? And they're in like a booth and a half away from some people. And you can see the video, and the audio is going to be shitty because there's all kinds of background noise, and this is not professional, but it's not supposed to be, as long as you can hear it, because I'll close that loophole in a second. What if somebody tweeted a video of these 3 drunk chicks in a fucking booth with about 8 or 10 margarita glasses empty on a table in front of them, and the tweet says, "Hey, this is that girl that plays the bunny on AEW. Listen to what she's talking about, some chick she dropped on her head." And the video is the bunny with 2 friends of hers, no wrestlers, just civilians. And she's caught. Fuck her. She was coming at me like a fucking missile. She would have broken my face. I stepped back just in time. Oops. It was the bitch's own fault. Better her than me. And that goes out on Twitter from some unknown person. And then some other fan picks up on it and says, wait, just in case you can't hear what she's saying, and they put the subtitles on it. And this is totally not affiliated with AEW. So then when Red Velvet comes out on Live Dynamite, she thanks the fans for all the support, and then she says, but I don't know if any of you saw, or most of you saw, or whatever, that apparently the bunny didn't feel the same way about this thing I did. They've got her on video now admitting that she fucking stepped back and let Red Velvet crash and burn. Then you could fucking then Bunny comes out and says, well, fuck you. You can't wrestle anymore anyway. Well, I can slap you in the fucking face. Pow. And she gets in, and here comes the fucking baker or the candlestick maker, and they fucking snatch Red Velvet off, and Bunny gets her with a fucking Rick Rude reverse neck breaker. Oh my God. And the doctor comes again, and oh shit, now book that on pay-per-view. Would that have been a little bit more entertaining than what we got, which was the girl almost killed herself and didn't sell it?
It would have been, but again, I don't think Red Velvet knew what to do in the moment. And I don't think anyone was there to make a quick call to do that. Also, your whole plan.
There's somebody is on the gorilla position. Somebody's at the monitor with the power to do anything, because I've seen it happen. Bruce has called audibles on WWF shows, on Raw. I've rung the bell on guys from the announce desk in OVW because they did something to blatantly cause a disqualification and let the referee saw it. So and the referee would look at me with a stunned look, and Dean, ring the bell, referee signaling for it. Things happen. Anyway, go ahead.
Over there, it's not the gorilla position, it's the Clyde position. Thank you, someone. Thank you. Thank you very much. But what I was going to say is your whole plan is reliant on the idea that the bunny could pull this off, acting genuine in a video that can't look in any way fake. It could not look like, one of those things that shows up on a wrestling show. It has to look like real fan footage. It has to be someone that identifies her, sits from a distance and records the conversation, and then she has to look realistic. That's a lot to ask.
Get her drunk first. Maybe that'll help. She's supposed to
get me drunk anyway. First. Get me drunk first. Maybe I'll like it.
Yeah. Well, I'm sorry. I guess that is the loophole. I just assumed that anybody in the wrestling business would be able to pull off telling a fucking story.
Here's the other problem of your whole plan. You're building to a rematch of the Bunny versus Red Velvet.
Well, goddamn it, have a little bit more interest than the first time around, at least.
That's true. It was a good idea.
Good heavens.
It's a good idea. You can maybe get some sponsorship from Applebee's or whatever you said.
They'd be sitting under the Applebee's sign. We're tweeting good in the neighborhood.
Hey, look, those AEW wrestlers are drinking White Claw. Let's listen to what they're saying. And then he gave me all this money, and he just said, I'll see you Wednesday.
But he meant Friday.
Well, it's my show, and we're having a good time.
All right. Have I mentioned the NFTs? I gotta talk about these again, because a lot of people, we got the feedback.
The show hasn't even been up. The show has not even been up half a day yet. And I still have a headache from discussing this with you yesterday.
Already, people have been saying that it was an incredible piece of radio broadcasting where we were discussing the NFTs and the corny coins and etc. People recommended the segment highly, but I am still thinking about doing some of these NFTs, which, what did you say, non-fuckable tokens? Is what?
Non-fungible tokens.
So, well, these are going to be fungible. These are going to be readily fungible. These things are going to be the kings of all fungible tokens. And I hope to have something more in the next week or so, but there's going to be several different kinds, several different levels. One will have fewer in existence than the other. There's going to be exclusive one-of-a-kind merchandise to go along with the big one. Ring-worn stuff, autographed, all that kind of stuff. So keep an eye out. But I'm going to take this whole business over, and I don't even know what the fuck it is. But it's on the interweb, so it must be good.
What's Office? What's a Mac? Oh, by the way, I'm going to go become an NFT billionaire. Get out of here. You don't know anything about any of this.
I didn't say billions. Millions will be fine. I never said anything about making billions of dollars. I am not greedy. How much money does one man need?
It depends.
On what?
What does one man want?
Well, what can one man have?
Property all over the place. That takes a lot of money.
Why would you want property all over the place? How many fucking houses can you sleep in at one time?
Mistresses all over the place. You need houses for the mistresses.
Be a different story. All right. Well, you didn't say they were their houses.
I mean, there's so many ways to just spend money and then just maybe do some stupid, goofy, I've got more money than I could ever do anything with things. Like just drop cocaine from airplanes and just crazy shit. Just go nuts.
You know, I did the math one time on if I had $1 billion, what could I do with it and how much would I have left over? And think about this. If you had $1 billion, then, okay, let's say you give $10 million to each of your 10 best friends. That's $100 million. Now you got $900 million. And you give $10 million to 10 people in your family. Now you got $800 million. You give $100 million to the handicapped kids. Now you got 7. You give $100 million to cancer. Now you got 6. Give $100 million to the poor, needy, unwanted, abused animals. Now you got 5. You set back $100 million for yourself for the rest of your life, because how the fuck you going to spend that just on yourself? Now you got 4. Now you're like, well, fuck. So you go back and you give all your friends and all your family another $10 million apiece. Now you've still got 2. You could cure another fucking disease and still fix up some fucking deal for $100 million. It's ridiculous. There's no way to spend that kind of money. And these billionaires want to fucking get up every morning, go fuck around, deal with bullshit, and make more money. Fuck. If you have $1 billion, you've got $900 million more than you could ever possibly need. Give it away. Fucking retire to your mansion and watch the deer frolic. You're not a big fan of frolicking?
I'm not a big fan of giving away your money.
Well, what are you going to use? If you had $1 billion, you would miss 800 or 900 million of it.
Let me tell you something. If I had $1 billion, I could easily find a way to spend $900 million. without any question, very quickly, I could do that.
You know, I have figured out from this point forward right now for the rest of my life, if I spend about $275,000, I'm fucking fine for anything I want or could possibly ever desire. And most of that involves landscaping and home improvements.
Well, one thing it doesn't involve, because you're already hooked up, is a good night's sleep.
Oh, I like the way you did that, and I will tell you what, that you're exactly correct. And boy, the folks at helixsleep.com can fix you right up, because as we've mentioned, a number of the beds in our castle here at Castle Cornette are outfitted with the fine Helix sleep mattresses. Here's the thing. You go into these other mattress places, besides the fact that they're expensive because it's a brick and mortar place and they got to pay that egregiously cheerful salesman to try to stick you with whatever they're pushing this week. But also, you may lay on 1 or 2 or 3 or 5, but it's really hard to keep track, and you don't have much help from these people. But if you go to helixsleep.com, then they can fix you up remotely, inexpensively, and correctly. Because you just take their 2-minute quiz. You match your body type and sleep preferences to the mattress that they make. They've got soft, medium, and firm. They've got cool-down mattresses. They got plus-size mattresses. They got, if you sleep on your side or back or stomach or you move around, whatever, you take the quiz, you order the mattress that they match you to, it comes to your door shipped for free. You never need to go to the store, and then the magical unboxing occurs because one person can easily pick this thing up and carry it to any room in the house, and then you put it where you want it to go and take it out of the sack, and it comes to life. But anyway, if you go to helixsleep.com/JCE and take the 2-minute sleep quiz, match it to the custom mattress. They've got a 10-year warranty. You get to try it out for 100 nights free, and they'll pick it up for you if you don't love it. I don't know what would be the matter with you, but anyway, and when you go to helixsleep.com/JCE, they're offering up to $200 off all the mattress orders and 2 free pillows, depending on what you buy there for our listeners at helixsleep.com/JCE. So imagine that you're floating in a cloud with the birds twinkling in your ears, and as I've mentioned, it's just soft like a puppy's belly. Curl up with a warm puppy, a Helix mattress, and listen to the birds twinkle, and you'll have a fine, happy life.
All right, well, let's see if we get up a fine, happy show. Maybe a challenge this week. We'll find out right now.
I'm pretty cheerful. I don't know what the fuck's the matter with you.
I'm trying. I'm tired.
Well, you know, you young people.
I don't know about these questions.
Oh, now you're blaming the listeners.
Well, here's a popular topic. I'll ask you this. This is from a week ago or so. This was sent in, Jim, to CornyDriveThru@gmail.com from Craig Giggs.
He does? I bet he's got a lot of fucking gig marks by now.
Hey, Jim and Brian. Love the show. Jim, what do you think about Alexa Bliss posting a video of her crying about the death of her pet pig? After being in the Firefly Funhouse shit and spitting fire, she posts this video online. By the way, someone commented, I'm genuinely curious. Don't you know anyone who owns a pig? So what they do after they die, eat them or bury them? Okay, I don't know what this comment here is yet.
What in the world? All right, that's taking a disturbing turn. I didn't see this video. I'm an animal lover. I could if she loved her pet pig or pet rat or pet dog, cat, whatever, but I don't know why you would post a video, particularly of, I can't, if something happened to Harley, you wouldn't hear from me for months probably on end at all. But yeah, I agree. It's for an evil, psychopathic, demon-possessed lunatic on the program to be crying about the pet pig in public is probably not consistent with the presentation of her personality. How you like all them fucking peas?
That was pretty impressive, but let's stay on this topic. This question was
impressive.
This question was sent to the CornyDriveThru@gmail.com from Tim in Western Pennsylvania.
Oh, I was going in a Western.
Big fan of the show. Big fan of the show, cowboy. Alexa Bliss missed the most recent month.
Well, hey, cowboy, is that your horse outside? No, ma'am, it's between my legs and you're too fat to ride it. Hee-haw! That's what Dusty said to Baby Doll one time on TBS.
Well, here's this email from Tim in Western Pennsylvania. Big fan of the show. Alexa Bliss missed the most recent Monday Night Raw because her pig Larry was sick.
All right, now, wait a minute.
And she can't find a vet for him. I was wondering Jim's opinion on a wrestler missing a show for a sick pet.
A sick pig?
Also, other than Terry Funk and his horse, does Jim know of any other animal-related call-offs by wrestlers? That's a weird phrasing there. P.S. Best wishes to Larry, and I hope he gets the help. Well, Larry's dead now, but this email came in before Larry died.
What kind of podunk area does she live in? She can't find a veterinarian.
Well, she's in a major area. I mean, I know my vet. I know they deal with dogs and cats. I think I've seen some birds in there. Maybe pigs? I don't know. I've never asked.
Well, is this a full-sized pig, or is this one of those cute little pot-bellied pigs?
I don't know, Larry.
It's just a goddamn 500-pound fucking...
No. It has to be Larry doesn't sound like a big fat one. Larry sounds like a...
What? Larry is Abdullah the Butcher's first name, so...
And he ran from it. There's a reason he doesn't call himself Larry.
Yeah, but the point is, he's still very unnaturally large.
They're not saying Alexa Bliss's pig Abdullah died.
Larry could eat... Well, Abdullah the Butcher used to call in every time his mother died.
Yeah.
And his mother and grandmother died about 6 or 8 times apiece over his course of his career. But we've got to determine what size this pig. If it was a cute little pot-bellied pig, I would think that you would be able to find a vet. But also, I would have to say that, yes, if she's a single person, had no family to leave the poor sick Larry with. But if it's a goddamn 4, 5, 6, 800-pound pig out in the yard in a slop pen, I don't know, and I don't know how that would have flown if we'd have tried to get away with that in Mid-South Wrestling or with Dusty for Crockett, missing on account of the what size pig is this? We've got to get clarification.
I have identified a photo.
You've identified the pig.
I've identified the pig. I have a picture here of the pig on its own.
Can we put this, if we can't put a picture of the pig up over the top of this audio so the people can see, perhaps Travis Bickle can figure the pig into the artwork.
I'm sure Alexa Bliss will appreciate that. But
how big is this pig?
It's a gigantic fucking pig. It's a gigantic fucking pig.
Larry.
It looks like it should be rolling in the mud, not like hanging out in the bedroom.
It's in wait a minute. It's in the pig is the full-size giant pig is in Alexa Bliss's bedroom.
I don't know for sure.
Are you sure this is not a German film that you've somehow gotten a clip of?
Well, this other photo has her laying on I think a couch.
Whoa.
On one side, she has the pig, and on the other side, she has 3 small dogs.
What is that, lunch for the pig?
No, don't say that.
Well, I'm
they probably get along. They grew up together.
I'm concerned for these dogs' safety.
Why? When was the last time you heard about a pig eating a dog?
Well, I'm sure it's happened.
Are you sure?
I'll have you know that there was one time that a Pomeranian just the size of Harley Quinn actually killed a giant Doberman, got stuck in its throat.
That's a Doberman. We're talking about a pig, a giant fat
there's
pig.
no reason to call people names.
I'm not calling. Oh, come on. Now you're being silly.
Pig.
Now you're being ridiculous.
So this is a giant pig in Alexa Bliss's bedroom with 3 small dogs. It's what you've just told me.
There's a giant pig in Alexa Bliss's bedroom. Yes. Yes.
Can you tweet me a picture of this? Is there any way you can tweet it?
Hold on. I can send this to you. You have access to your email, but you can't send anything out, correct?
Right.
All right, hold on. I'm going to make a screen capture of this. Actually, why the fuck am I even doing that? I'll send you a link to the page I'm on, and I'm going to go right now. I'll do commentary while I do this. I click on the email link. I post
Oh, God
This
damn
here,
it. Don't
I'm
rub
sending
it
this to
in.
Jim. Oh, I'm rubbing it in. I didn't even think about that.
Are you still working in Microsoft's Office?
Well, I'm on a Mac here. I don't have Office on this computer. I have it on one of the other ones.
I've told you before, I don't know Mac or anything to do. I don't know whether he's got his shit together or not.
Do you remember the movie Mac and Me?
No, I don't.
It was a really, really awful movie that I watched so many times when I was a kid. From the late 80s, like, I guess it was supposed to be like another E.T., except minus the budget and Steven Spielberg and talent and everything else. And they also had a tie-in with McDonald's. So the alien goes to McDonald's and it's a whole dance scene. Mac and Me.
Uh-huh.
That's right. You have this email.
How's that picture working out for you?
I sent you the email. I sent you the link in an email.
Well, I ain't got shit yet.
Well, we don't even know if it's working.
Well, I guess we'll have to go on.
But anyway, Alexa Bliss is here. Let me ask you another question about, again, this has really captivated the audience, or at least a portion of it. Jim, this sent to CornyDriveThru@gmail.com from Shafee in Detroit. This week, I saw the emotional video a teary-eyed Alexa Bliss posted about the death of her pig, Larry Steve. Larry Steve?
Larry Steve?
As an animal lover myself, I certainly sympathize with anyone who loses a beloved family member. Had social media existed at the time, do you think you would have posted a similar video after the passing of George the Rat if you were simultaneously attempting to get over as a diabolical, I can't speak at all, heel on television? And there's the question from Shafee in Detroit.
No, I just said I wouldn't discuss a horrible loss in the family on social media anyway, but no, it would not have served the public well to know that Jim Cornette, evil heel manager, is in reality a loving pet owner. The day we lost George because he had gotten either cancer or some type of tumor in his lung because he started wheezing. And we took him to the vet and it was easy to find a vet for George up there in Connecticut. And we took him to the vet and they said the only thing that we could possibly do is try to operate and, clear his breathing passage or whatever because they'd done the x-ray and etc. So he said, go ahead and do that. And it was scheduled for one morning and my better half at the time went up with George while I went to the office. But then I got the call George was back home, but George didn't come out of it. And I had to go home that day, and we had to figure out what to do because we're in the middle of Stamford, Connecticut, and I was not going to bury a member of my family in that no good, shitty state of Connecticut. So after much thought, we put George in the freezer in a bag, obviously. And then next time we went home to Tennessee, we took him home and buried him there.
All right. And
oh, my God, there is a pig in Alexa Bliss's house. Now, that's not a full-size pig, but that's not one of those little pot-bellied pigs. That's sort of an intermediate pig. But there's a pig. The pig is laying with her on the couch. The dogs are away from Alexa Bliss, like looking at the camera like, why the fuck are we here? And Alexa Bliss is curling up with Larry Steve the pig.
Well, it is my show.
Died due to the lack of medical care one day before his 4th birthday.
Oh, that is sad.
Suffered a medical emergency. I don't know. There's not enough vets that are able to treat pigs or any tools to be able to help larger animal. Oh, wait a minute. She's in Los Angeles. Well, no wonder. For heaven's sake, if she'd have been here in some civilized part of the country, they could take care of pigs. They do that at regular people hospitals here in Kentucky. But the Larry Steve was wearing a nice little blanket there.
I thought that was a towel.
It looks like it might be a towel, might be a blanket, but he's covered up on the couch, cuddling up with Alexa Bliss as she acknowledges her poor neglected dogs over on that don't want anything to do with her. But yeah, here's the thing. Larry Steve is standing there on her carpet. She has furniture and an end table, looks like a stereo stand, some upholstered furniture that's white, and like white of that artificial wood flooring. It's very white vases. It's very nice, but I've been around some pigs outdoors, and they just shit with abandon. And I'm wondering how Larry Steve was able to prevent, as he was walking through this predominantly white, very nice looking living room, that he was able to just avoid having the Hershey squirts all over the place. Have you ever seen a pig shit, Brian?
No.
Yeah, boy, I tell you, it's rough. It's rough. And you can even if you don't see it, you can tell that it's happened from a long way away. Long way away.
All right, let's get away from this. Let's get a long way away.
Sort of like the people are going to know that this show happened, even if they're a long way away from it.
Let's get another question here. This one sent to CornyDriveThru@gmail.com.
From Larry Steve.
From Nil from Niladri in India.
Oh, boy.
Hold on, I need to compose myself. Hold on. All right. Jim, what do you think?
Yes, Larry Steve.
Will you stop? What do you think of Don Callis as a manager alongside Kenny Omega? Last night he got huge heat at Double or Nothing. Share your thoughts. I am Nildari from India.
I am Nodari from India, and I stake a claim to this territory. I've said this before. Don's been on the program several years ago. The only thing crossword I've ever had with Don in person was that I see you hang out with the wrong people. You got weird tasting friends. But I liked his work in the 90s in the WWF. I'm the one who pretty much brought him in. Got him in as the Jackal. What they're doing now is mocking playing heel wrestler. They're they're not acting like adults. They're not over the top in a serious way where Jackal would have been a cult leader type before or whatever, but they're just over the top in silly overacting. We're playing this part and winking at you ways. And Don has fallen into everybody that gets in that environment, it seems like that's what they're doing. And it's more than just what they're being told to say or material that they're given, because you can't control the attitude and the way that somebody delivers the verbiage or the material. That's why certain guys get over and certain guys don't, because certain guys have a way of speaking that attracts people's attention. But, the Jackal may have been, a fucking different kind of manager than what the 80s WWF fans were used to, but he wasn't. None of his guys ever said, 69 me, Don, and they dropped down in the middle of the ring in a fucking blow me position. They're not acting like fucking, as I think you said one time, Brian, they're not acting like, or they shouldn't be acting like heels in a fucking Disney movie. So I've liked it in the past, to answer your question, fucking Nanook from India or whatever your fucking name was, but I don't like it now, because instead of him bringing what he used to do and what he can do and trying to be serious, he's doing the same shit that the other kids are doing. And I don't know if you believe that anybody got serious heat on any AEW program or any WWE program that you've seen in the last several years, you've never seen serious heat. Unless there were people being restrained from coming over the fucking rail to get a hold of the guy, that's not serious heat. it's a lot of people booed what he said because they know that's what they're supposed to do, and they're playing their roles too. I think the AEW fans get as much of a kick of being part of the show as the wrestlers do. That was kind of the ECW gimmick, and it's same flavor. But Don's a intelligent guy, and he's well spoken on television. But it's just all been funny, and I don't know what's the word I'm searching for, Brian. Not just unbelievable, but it's just they're just overacting on purpose.
Well, you know what it is too? Taking your feelings for Omega out of it. I feel like I have to preface so many things by saying that. But taking your personal feelings about Omega out of it. When they were put together, what I read was they envisioned this themselves as Bockwinkel and Heenan.
Oh.
And the thing about Bockwinkel and Heenan was funny in the AWA, but it was never him at his most comical in WWE. It was serious. Right. He was a serious guy that had lines he would use, but he wasn't a clown.
He would talk down and condescendingly about people that you liked and say funny things, but it didn't register. He's not just doing a stand-up routine or not just assing off.
They didn't act like clowns. That's the point. Yeah.
And I don't know, which one? Was Don supposed to be Heenan and Bockwinkel?
Omega's Bockwinkel and Don is Heenan.
What part of Omega looks like Bockwinkel? I guess probably the only one is one that I haven't seen and hope I never do see. But he doesn't speak like Bockwinkel. He doesn't look like Bockwinkel. He doesn't work like Bockwinkel.
But he has a big belt.
But he has a big belt. And that's, I mean, just Twinkle Toes takes the edge off of everything with the silliness and the phoniness and the 69 Me Don and the breathy voice and the half of his promos talk about, well, this is the part in wrestling where I'm supposed to do this and that. Just let everybody know it's all bullshit, but we're not going to do that here. It's a wink and a nod to his small niche fucking smart audience that wants the fucking Saturday Night Live bullshit. But I can't give an honest critique to most people's work on that program because they're all being silly, and that automatically disqualifies a lot of consideration on my part for people when they're just being silly and stupid and not trying to be legitimate on purpose and just laughing at the business. Let's go back to Larry Steve.
Let's get another question here, Jim. This one, sent to CornyDriveThru@gmail.com, is from, please don't reveal my name or email address. All right.
Please don't tell anybody I contacted you people. I'll be shunned from polite society.
I'm on Twitter as Darby Fan 68. I don't know what the 68 connotation is.
68, Nikolai Volkov used to say, you know what 68 is? I said, what? He said, give me one, I owe you one.
Yeah, it still makes no sense.
It doesn't make it, but Nikolai was very charming when he said it.
This person's on Twitter as Darby Fan 68, so you can refer to me by that. I have heard you all talking about Sting telling his ex-wife the things he did, as well as the things other wrestlers did. This got me thinking. Darby Allin lives a straight-edge lifestyle. No alcohol, no drugs. But Darby has also said he does not believe in one-night stands and doesn't hang around other wrestlers in the dressing room because he doesn't want to hear about who is sleeping with who or who has slept with who.
Boy, he sounds like a barrel of fucking monkeys to hang out with.
Darby has
what a fucking laugh riot Darby Allin must be to fucking pal around with.
Darby has stated he needs to be in love with someone to have sex with them.
Oh, God damn it.
So could this, your reaction is over the top, but so could this be one of the reasons why they paired Darby with Sting? Based on what you have recently said about Sting, I'm sure he is choosy about who he works with.
Oh, God. If he was choosy about who he worked, that line writes itself. I'm not even going to go there. God damn it. So what are they going to call them? Their team name, the Narcs, the Buzzkills, the Celibate Express, Jesus Christ on a cracker. I'm sorry, but Darby Allin, I like to watch him do anything physical in the ring. When he speaks, it's like fucking Dr. Somnambulism. It just that monotone drone. He does stupid things, and he can't even explain the stupid things he does, like jumping off of bridges and buildings and falling off of shelves in plastic bags. But, well, I was drunk or I was high, because he's not on drugs and he doesn't drink. Then he also doesn't want to just fuck around. Jesus Christ. You know what? What's the old saying? Youth is wasted on the young. How old is he?
I will look that up right now.
Because I'm going to tell you something, Darby, from personal experience. The older you get, the harder it gets to do certain things. So do it all now.
28.
Miss out. 28 years old? He ought to be fucking a knothole in a tree. Good God, what's happened to these soft fucking men? I guess he wants to hold hands and talk all night, too.
So do you think this is why they paired Sting up with him?
Oh, well, would that, you know what?
I mean, legitimately, do you think Sting would be choosy?
Stop and laugh. No, he's not. I don't think he's that far gone that he's going to say, well, give me a sober guy that doesn't want to get pussy after the show because I'm religious. I don't think he's that far gone. He was with the Main Event Mafia and TNA with all kinds of different types of folks. No, but maybe in some fucking Tony Khan. Has Tony Khan ever felt the gentle caress of a female or played sticky finger behind a dumpster? Who knows? Maybe he's enough of a virgin that he fucking thought of that. But I can't imagine anybody in the wrestling business thinking, well, I want to make sure that when I team these two baby faces up, their personalities match as far as being nice Christian folks. Fuck. That would have probably excluded half of the great tag teams in the history of the world. So I wouldn't put it past him, but it would be crazy to do so.
You know, maybe part of Darby's problem is that he doesn't have any excitement in his life, and he doesn't talk with any excitement because he's not starting his day with the proper breakfast.
I thought I was going to go with you on that until you got to breakfast. I think Darby Allin's got bigger problems than breakfast. And by the way, if he's sober from all drugs, then he better fucking watch those bumps, because the pain pills will be necessary sooner or later. But folks, if you want to start your day out with not only a great breakfast, but also a much better segue than Brian Last just presented you, then I would think you go no further than our fine friends at Magic Spoon. Since they have been sponsoring the program, we've talked about it. We've gotten so much great feedback. If you tweet about Magic Spoon or any of our sponsors, then tag us, as the kids say, me and Brian in it, and we'll retweet you. Pick you up a few followers. People will be following you home, following you down the street. Watch out for brown Ford LTDs with Missouri plates. But anyway, Magic Spoon, folks, is what I was talking about. It's the best part of your morning because it's a great, healthy, and delicious cereal. Cereal used to be the best part of being a kid. You ate it with a big spoon in your special bowl, but it was sugar and junk and carbs. And now you're older and you're going to die at some point, and you want to stave that off as long as possible. So, the cereal from Magic Spoon tastes just like all the stuff that you learned to like as a kid. However, 0 grams of sugar, 13 to 14 grams of protein, 4 net grams of carbs in each serving, 140 calories a serving, keto-friendly, gluten-free, grain-free, soy-free, low-carb, and GMO-free. Stop, get out of the car, cut off your Slauson, get back in the car, and you can build your own box, folks. Available cocoa, fruity, frosted, peanut butter, blueberry, and cinnamon. Go to magicspoon.com/Jim. Get your custom bundle of cereal. Try it today. Use the promo code JIM at checkout. You will save $5 off of your Magic Spoon order. Remember the 100% happiness guarantee. If you don't like it, they'll refund your money. And then they'll put you on a watch list because there's something wrong with you. But anyway, get your next delicious bowl of guilt-free cereal at magicspoon.com/Jim. and use the code Jim to save $5 off. Remember, Magic Spoon. Not like the magic spoon that some people use up their noses.
Of course, Jim, a healthy breakfast is important for everyone, a growing boy and a growing girl, and even some of us who are fully grown,
and even some of us that are overgrown.
And some of us who can't transition to anything else here on this show. But as we begin to transition to the next segment, and I attempt to hold on to control of my own program here, I'm going to give you one opportunity. Is there anything you have on your agenda, on your plate, from your email that you can't respond to, that you want to address?
There was one thing I was going to bring up because we both got this email, but I fielded it, saw it here because, I've been very complimentary in the past of Selena De La Renta from working with her in MLW. And we just talked about on a few weeks ago on the program that she finished up in MLW. We said, is she going to stick with wrestling or what's she going to do? Apparently, she's also been appearing in a company in Texas called SWE. I think Teddy Long is doing commissioner work. I believe Kevin Sullivan may be doing announcing. So they've got some names down there, right? I haven't seen any footage of the program for anybody asks, but Joe from Wichita sent the email. Have either or both of you guys been paying attention to the issues surrounding Selena De La Renta and garbage wrestler extraordinaire Hannibal?
Yeah.
It's the spooky. Do the spooky voice, Brian.
What do you want me to say? Wikipedia says your middle name is E? How do you get a name like that?
Anyway, it seems, as Joe continues on, he's attempted to create an extremely toxic situation with Selena after asking her to manage him. I've attached some screenshots for reference. And this is screenshots of text messages. Apparently, there was some controversy, and Spooky Voice podcaster has exited the SWE promotion. I know. Ooh.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
I'll be in Canada.
Paying people to talk to me on Skype.
In the basement.
Do you think it's a basement? It's a windowless room, but I was thinking it might be a converted jail cell. It's now a studio. But anyway, there's a tweet here from Selena De La Renta. Full disclosure. Hannibal came to me asking to manage. Well, this is Twitter. So Hannibal
come to you.
Yes, Hannibal came to me asking me to manage him under mask character Blood Hunter. Apparently, he's got a hooded gimmick, Blood Hunter, which from a guy that sued somebody else over hepatitis C. There's a lot of inside verbiage here.
Manage me as Blood Hunter.
But listen to this. Listen to this. Hannibal came to me asking me to manage him under his mask character Blood Hunter and offered to pay my rates in exchange for the clout. SWE really liked the gimmick and offered to pay my rate instead. Hannibal became real possessive and wanted me to only manage him. Now, apparently, this guy... Let me smarten some people up about one aspect of the wrestling business. If some company is booking you, then they give you a manager. You don't bring your own manager in unless they book the whole group together, and you don't be a mark and pay your own manager to be on a show. I wonder if they were paying him to be on the show or if he was going down there to be on the show and paying a pretty girl to manage him too. That's interesting. That would be possibly a first. But there's some screenshots, as they call them. I'm trying to, do I click on this? No, I can just see them.
Money marks come in all shapes and sizes. I'm Blood Hunter.
Well, no, he's also got an alter ego. I think he's Clark Kent and Superman because his messages, screenshots here are from Devin Hannibal Nicholson, parentheses, reporter. So he plays a mild reporter. But then he turns into his alter ego of the Blood Hunter. But anyway, he said his thing is, I'm with Tom now, whoever that may be, trying to convince him to tell Teddy Long, to drop the idea of you managing that other team. I don't like it. It will water us down. I want you managing me only and me bodyguarding you in your matches. And her thing was, hi, I don't know why not. I think it would be cool if we had a stable. And I can't, some of these are trimmed off.
Which she has done in the past. I mean, just in terms of what she has done, she has had a stable of her own in the past. So she's done it
in MLW and etc. But also another comment of his, another comment, you want me to manage you at no one said I'd stop if I managed someone else. My character is known for having factions. You said you pay the flights and they pay my rate. So he was flying her in and paying her at first. And they said, well, we'll pay you if he'll fly you in. And then he doesn't want her to manage anybody else when they're paying her. So anyway, listen, more with Selena Dealer.
You're mine.
She says after that, he bled all over my $2,500 Fendi suit. So the blood hunter who sued somebody for giving him hepatitis C in a blood match bled all over her suit. We agreed on no more blood on matches. The next 2 suits after that were covered in blood. I asked for extra money for outfits, and he gave me $400 and went complaining to the company about me asking for more money. First match versus Justin Credible. Justin walked out on him after he smacked him across the rib cage, making it impossible for Justin to finish the match as he was badly hurt. Fast forward to the match versus the new student.
That's his
Smacks him over the head. The kid bleeds and bleeds. After the match, Teddy Long tells him he did too much and expresses the danger he's putting people in. And he proceeds to say Teddy is an asshole and it was better for the views anyway. Fast forward again. He's been complaining about SWE owing him money. First of all, nobody asked him, and something's covered up here, to pay for anything. He asked SWE to let him pay for his opponents as he only wanted to work names. Yesterday, he sent a letter to the company demanding the matches he was promised, a storyline where he's champ, managed by his old local manager, doesn't want to relate to me as I asked for too much money, and doesn't want to deal with Teddy Long, the general manager.
My God.
Wait, and she closes up. Just saying his YouTube video is full of bullshit. Hannibal is unsafe, unprofessional, and mentally unstable. That's what Selena De La Renta has to say.
I'm like Hellwig, minus success. In my basement. I demand to be champion with Selena by my side.
Sounded like Sid there when they offered him, okay, Sid, we'll give you $400,000 and the NWA belt and a 2-year extension, but he wanted softball season off and they wouldn't do that, so he went to work for Vince.
What a goof.
After softball season.
What a goof. I said it before, money marks come in all shapes and sizes for real. That's what this is. He's paying to be on the show, bringing in a quality opponent, and wants to pay to have his manager there, or at least pay part of it, so he could try to get some views on YouTube, because as everyone knows, that thing has not been going very well for him.
I didn't know the guy was still wrestling after the whole, deal with Abdullah. I thought he had become a reporter, a Cub reporter.
A reporter.
Yes, he's a reporter.
Extra. Read all about it.
Selena De La Renta gutted me.
This goof, and you just talked about, and I've had a couple run-ins with him in the past on social media. Luckily, nothing in person. He's gigantic and clearly unstable. So you never know what that kind of lunatic would do. And he's in Canada. So he wants to mess with me over here in the States. We can have fun. But I don't like this guy.
He's safe from me. I can't go up there.
He is as dumb as a brick. And he puts out really awful, garbage content. And that's what it is. He's always desperate for any kind of content. He's not going to get a job. He's unstable. He's unhireable. He claims that he was going to get signed by the WWE and Abdullah the Butcher giving him hepatitis C cost him like everything. His major push, and Jerry Briscoe was going to sign him, and this and that.
The chance to be the new host of Fright Night, replacing the fearmonger with that voice.
But to be honest about things, what you just heard in that Selena De La Renta tweet is things that I've heard from other people, especially people in Canada. Because a lot of people have problems with this guy. He's unprofessional. He hurts people. He would never have lasted in a WWE locker room. the guys would have hated him. It never would have happened. Anything you'd like to add?
I think we found your Harpo McFingerfuck.
Well, he's so stupid. He's just such a stupid guy.
The thing is, and I'm not necessarily mad at some goof, but it's laughable.
I'm not mad at him.
Well, you know what I'm saying. He pays a bunch of the guys. I mean, I've had people say, "Oh, he'll pay you this and that." He'll pay you. He used to pay you if he could come to you at a fan fest or whatever and shoot an interview with you. Now he pays people to get on Skype, and he has absolutely no historical product knowledge whatsoever on any of the people he interviews, because like you said, he'll say off of Wikipedia. So it says that you once gave birth to a live pigeon. And he doesn't know any better. It's just, it's embarrassing for the fella.
Stupid. He once put up a video. He got mad about me impersonating him in his stupid voice and the fact that he doesn't know anything a long time ago. And he put up some video. It was the funniest fucking thing ever. Whatever he thought the reaction was going to be, I'm pretty sure it was the opposite. It was a video. The still photo was him, no shirt, with like headgear on and boxing gloves, doing the double bicep. And he responded to me making fun of him by, in the same video, minutes apart, challenging me to fight him in a parking lot and threatening to sue me. So I wasn't exactly sure, what does he want to do? Like, this is a weird dance here.
Says he want to fight or sue?
Yeah.
Or does he want to sue after the fight?
I think he just wants to sue because he can't get fucking work. But that's just my 2 cents there. But what a goof. Garbage content. Garbage
We've given him a gift here, because that way we've handed him on a silver platter. He can put up my response to Last and Cornette, and he'll get 1,474 views on
Mom,
his thing.
bring me some poutine.
I thought it was Putan. Or maybe that's Boudin.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Boudin. You never been to Louisiana?
No, I haven't.
Eat you a nice bowl of Boudin.
No. You like okra?
Know. Well, it's gotta be better than the fucking Putan.
And the next question has to be better than this.
What about the Poontang?
Were you surprised The Rock got Poontang all over TV?
No, even more the pie. Do you like pie? No, at that point in time, it was cable, and the ratings were up, and every once in a while you'd get a letter from USA or a memo or whatever, but otherwise they went a little too far, and that's why they had to pull it a little back as usual. But the way he's another one of those guys that the shit that he said, it would have disturbed people in some cases if it was somebody else saying it. But he was so smooth and he was so over. Yeah, that used to be the old days on TV wrestling. Obviously, you could never cuss. You couldn't say any profanity on territory TV wrestling shows, and you couldn't say anything questionable and any kind of double entendre. It depended on, the territory, but most of them were very strict. But if the babyface slipped and said something, they would never get a complaint. But if the heel slipped and said anything, people would fucking hop on the phone because they got the chance to stick it to the heel. And Gorgeous George Jr. on Memphis TV is doing a promo about the face-to-face thing with Bill Dundee one time, and Lance Russell's holding the microphone, and all of a sudden, George hauls off and says, you're nothing but a chicken shit worm. And at the same exact time, Gorgeous George Jr. realizes he just said chicken shit and goes, oh, and puts his hand over his mouth. And Lance heard chicken shit and went, oh, and grabbed the microphone and put it in his jacket pocket. And then George just stood there staring, and Dundee didn't know what to say. And Lance just, well, we don't need to hear any more of that kind of stuff. And they got so many phone calls, they took George off TV for a couple of weeks. You can't do that stuff anymore.
No, you can't. And speaking of things you can't do anymore, our next question, Jim, sent to CornyDriveThru@gmail.com from Flick Time. What are your thoughts on The Godfather?
I thought it was a great movie. I really thought Godfather 3 was probably the best of the trilogy.
Oh, get the fuck out of here.
But, well, no, I'm serious. It really was. Although, if you say the original, then you're more than entitled to that opinion. Some people would say Randy Orton. Some, I wouldn't have an argument with it. The Godfather, obviously, the Godfather, the Ho Train. I again thought that it was a little much with the actual hoes out there and everything, during the Attitude Era, but I like the guy. Papa Shango, Soul Taker, Charles Wright. He's a great guy. He was legitimate. That gimmick was, besides any activities that were illegal in nature, that was Godfather. He worked and still probably does, I think, at the strip club in Las Vegas. He had a lot of girls. He was a fun-loving guy. He was a big-ass motherfucker that, he could work and he could talk some. He wasn't Bruno Sammartino, but, it fit for that time. And unfortunately, when they had to gear back, after he was already established in that gimmick, then they had to fuck it up. What was it? The Good Father, and they started
the right to censor
the other way with the right to censor and everything. But no, but as a person and as a talent, Godfather's a heck of a guy. But I knew not just with him, but I knew all the stuff they were doing during the Attitude Era. Sooner or later, it's going to register with somebody important, whether it be sponsors or television networks or whatever. Hey, what the fuck's going on over here? The girls in the crowd are flashing their tits and blah, blah, blah. And it all did come, at various points where they had to stop doing this and stop doing that and go more PG. They probably were cleaner, in the mid-2000s than they were in the 80s. Because they had to go the other way because they'd gotten too much attention in the other direction. But the same thing, Godfather I didn't mind the Godfather gimmick because that was so much really him, and it was fun, and he had fun with it, as much as I did Val Venus's, because Sean Morley was such a great worker, a really great athletic worker, and the physique, and he could talk, and Val Venus just doomed him. When you're, the sole reason that your gimmick name comes about is because it rhymes with a word for dick, and you were supposed to be a porn star. Where was that? How was that ever going to have legs or life? Sean Morley could have been a top wrestling star with a serious gimmick for 15 fucking years. Val Venus, Anyway.
Did you ever meet any of those guys? Like, I know the Godfather came out of the Monster Factory, I believe. But any of those guys that were training with Larry Sharp when Larry was working with Dennis, when you were working those Philly shows, were any of those guys, the trainees, ever around?
Oh, yeah. Well, the only reason I don't actually think that I worked on a show with Godfather was because I was still in WCW when they trained him, and he went to Memphis as Soul Taker. Yeah. That was 89, 90, 91, 89, in thereabouts. Yeah. So, but, a lot of the guys would be around at some of the shows Dennis promoted, or they'd be on the ring crew, or, he would tell me about them. Hey, I got so-and-so, or we got so-and-so. And some of those guys would end up on WWF television when we would be taping in the Northeast. I'd try to, not only did we need different job guys for television and guys that halfway knew what they were doing, but also if they could be seen and somebody said, hey, that guy looks like something. You know what? Unfortunately, when Jimmy Shoulders got his chance, it was as a transvestite named Cloudy. That was a step down from Jimmy Shoulders, the Illustrated Man, but in a Body Donna outfit with all those tattoos, it was a sight to see. But some of the guys got extra work that way, and a few of them got looked at, et cetera, et cetera.
A question that we received from a lot of different people, Jim, is to get your thoughts on recent comments from CM Punk on Twitter after the WWE talent releases. Did you see this?
I did not see CM Punk's comments, no.
Okay, so this is from June 2nd, and someone named John Squires tweeted out, One thing that has consistently bummed me out about WWE in recent years is that there's been a wealth of incredible talent in that company, but they rarely seem to really know what to do with any of it. The latest wave of releases is a truly stunning reflection of that issue. To which CM Punk replied on Twitter, "It's like a movie with a blockbuster budget and cast. But if it's written by creatively bankrupt nincompoops, specifically for an audience of one, in a language nobody understands anymore, it's trash. But people watch it because they like movies."
I don't know if I could have put it better myself.
He is so good on Twitter, isn't he?
He's very good to the point. I tend to meander a little bit sometimes. But yeah, I mean, what can you say? That's the thing, is there are still a lot of people that watch wrestling because it's been the thing that they always did. And if you go back 20 years when WCW closed, WCW had sucked most of the time that Turner Broadcasting had owned it. But those old-time wrestling fans stuck with it. They got the brief pop from the Monday Night Wars, and then everything fell in a hole. And when WCW went away, then all those people, they didn't start watching Raw. They just left. They went away because they wanted the old NWA wrestling. That was the offshoot. I've said, and WWF then has been bleeding viewers when all of the talent that was over has gradually turned over, and nobody in turn has gotten over. And part of it is because the creative, part of it's because of the talent, part of it's because the damage that's been done to the wrestling business, and everybody knows it's all caca, and why take it seriously anymore? But you see that every so often. You lose people that don't come back because of shit like he just said and shit like they've seen in the past. They lose faith, they lose patience, but it takes, for wrestling fans, it's traditionally taken a long time for that to happen. And, you know, we're seeing the end of it now because there's not much farther it can go in terms of down until it's nobody. But that was the thing, is wrestling fans, when wrestling started really sucking, it was like a long abusive relationship. You knew it wasn't going to end well, but you didn't want to bring it to an end right then because it had meant so much to you. And it took a long time to drive that many wrestling fans off. And you used to see it in pockets of the country with a dying territory. The Bruisers Indiana in the last days, or the Sheiks Detroit in the last days, or, you know, Southwest Championship Wrestling over the last days wasn't, you know, Kansas City. The talent goes away, and they weren't doing phony, silly shit. They just lost their talent and had nothing hot going on and aged out in all those instances. And then finally people just say, well, we'll quit. But it takes a while. But we've reached the point now where there's, as I said, there's not much more room to go. So, you know, Punk summarized it there, but it is an abusive relationship with wrestling and the wrestling fans. We have been driving them away since the first corporate ownership, TBS, in 80. So we've been driving them away for 30 years. And finally, we've finished off running off most of them.
What do you think about the outrage that we see now every time there's any layoffs or anytime any wrestlers are released? I mean, obviously, there has to be some churn. And you have to refresh the roster. And we said Braun Strowman's been a main guy, but he's making a lot of money, and they don't see him at that level anymore. And what do? He's making all that money. I mean, it's not like, I shouldn't say that. I mean, everyone has their fans. Everyone has their favorites. Everyone likes other people. Everyone enjoys working with other people. But sometimes, I mean, just 6 releases or whatever it was, 7 releases, and people lose their minds.
Well, because they hear how much money that the WWE is making. And then they go, well, and they can't pay these poor wrestlers. The wrestlers are sympathetic. That's what I told Tony Khan when I first talked to him, or I would have told him if we'd had a conversation, because there's an NDA signed. Let me back up on that. But basically, I said, at this point in time, Vince McMahon is the evil empire. The people have never before been so sympathetic to the wrestler's plight. And if you capitalize on that and take advantage of that, by presenting a different company than WWE as the one that cares about the wrestlers, and the wrestlers are involved. I never dreamed it would actually be a shoot. But if the wrestlers are involved and we listen to their concerns, then you already, it's like a continuation of what they were doing with the elite group and everything. They were doing giant crowdfunding. Yeah, we can draw 10,000 people in Chicago. Of course we can. We'll rent this building, and because everybody from around the world, even if they couldn't get there, they bought a fucking ticket because they wanted to fucking stick it to Vince McMahon and the WWF. It was a giant crowdfunding thing, and they got swept up in the mania. But then here we are 2 years later, and it's the same amount of people, and they can't do that all the time because this type of product doesn't draw any type of new audience, because people that aren't already into this look at it like, what the fuck is that going on? We've heard that from any lapsed wrestling fan. This is not what they're looking for. But so with the WWE releasing these people, they're mad because the WWE is $1 billion company and they can't pay these wrestlers. But of course you need to change talent on a fairly regular basis. And there's no reason to pay guys that you've had sitting around for 4 or 5 years and doing nothing. Let them go somewhere else and do something else if they can to make something out of themselves. The only problem is that there's really nowhere else to go to make money at that level besides AEW, which is rapidly filling up, and nobody else can pay at that level. And there's still not as many spots as there would have been if we had the territories. So, some people are just going to be left out.
In reality, this isn't they can't pay you. The reality is they don't want you.
Right. And that doesn't mean that you suck. You may have done the greatest thing in the world last year, but how can we miss you if you won't go away? How can we look at the same wrestlers for years and years all the time? Sure, they could, if they'd have been smart, what they wanted to do with OVW was make sure that we were not seen. They would pay us more money when we would come up with a deal where somebody was offering to put the tape on overseas and give us $1,000 a month. Or don't do this on Channel America. We don't want all these guys seen before we bring them up. Well, now NXT is seen just as much as Raw. So they're missing another developmental program. And a lot of people, the Performance Center. I know it's been a pandemic, but unless they get back to running fucking small spot shows in Florida, in front of a few people, just to get some of the greenest folks experience, you can't just go from the Performance Center now to NXT television, because that's national TV. So they're closing up all the fucking, local places that you could have learned what you were doing before you get on a television where everybody in the world is going to see you. But no, so you always need to fire wrestlers. You always need to change wrestlers. You always need to switch your roster around. And when they make egregiously bad decisions, yeah, that's notable. How could they fire so-and-so? Not just one person saying it, but a lot of people saying it. And sometimes you're like, well, shit, so-and-so doesn't have anywhere else to go. Well, that's actually not necessarily it's the WWE's fault in history because they ran all the territories out of business, but it's not their fault right now. It doesn't mean you weren't big there last year. Doesn't mean you won't be big there in 3 more years. But right now, you've been around there for a while. We need a break from you. Go away. Learn a new hold.
Maybe during that break, you can listen to some music on some brand new Raycon earbuds.
You know what? That's an excellent thing to do. Not only listen to music on the Raycon earbuds, but also listen to this podcast on the Raycon earbuds, because if you're an aspiring pro wrestler, you will learn more about the psychology aspect of pro wrestling by listening to this show than you will by going to the Performance Center. That's pretty obvious. But folks, whether you like music, whether you like podcasts, whether you want to listen to somebody humming to themselves quietly, whatever it may be, the Raycon earbuds are the ones for you. The Raycon wireless earbuds in your ears can make all the difference with getting crisp sound at half the price of other premium audio brands. They look great. They feel even better. A range of colors, the customizable gel tips, It's comfortable in your ear. You don't even need to lubricate your ear. I did that at first. It's not necessary. Saved me a ton of money in KY jelly. The Raycons, you can take them around everywhere. Stacy uses these. As you know, I don't like to stick things in my ears, but Stacy uses them. It's got 24-hour battery life. How can you listen to 24 hours of anything nonstop? They're portable. You take them around anywhere. And the folks at Raycon are going to fix you up because they're offering 15% off all their products for our listeners. Anything they've got, 15% off. Here's what you got to do. Go to buyraycon, BUYRAYCON.com/JCE and get 15% off the entire order. So with these kind of prices, you can grab a pair and a spare in case your first pair gets stolen by somebody who's jealous of you for having them. 15% off at buyraycon.com/JCE.
That's right.
Well, it's certainly not wrong.
I wasn't prepared. That's why I was so emphatic about how right it was. Jim?
Yes. Brian.
I just had a piece right before you went to me. I ate a piece from, they're not on this week's show, but nuts.com.
You ate a piece right before I came to you.
A poontang pie. No, I had a caramel popcorn covered in chocolate. So I still have the taste in my mouth. I'm trying to talk to you. And it's not working well.
We've got so many fine sponsors. Wish we had enough fine questions to go along with them.
Well, let's try this next one. I don't know how familiar you are with this whole thing, and there's a few different dimensions to this.
I'll get familiar quick.
This question, a popular one, sent in to CornyDriveThru@gmail.com from Gary in Ireland. What are your thoughts on the Will Ospreay situation? He is currently suffering spine and neck issues that are worse than expected. Also, does Jim have any thoughts on Kenny Omega's comments that Ospreay only got injured because he was trying to fill Omega's shoes?
Oh, for fuck's sake. Well, maybe they're friends. They probably are, since they're the modern generation. So then Twinkle Toes is being in gimmick saying that. If they're not friends, then fuck him again. But I've got to be honest with you. I've seen clips of about 3 Will Ospreay matches, not the whole matches, just the clips. And I did not feel the need to search out any more because some people, including good old Uncle Dave out on the West Coast, say, oh, he's the greatest wrestler in the world. And here we are with the Cirque du Soleil and the gymnastics above all else, and that being the most important thing. And everybody says, oh, he does all these amazing things. Well, how old is he? Is he still in his 20s, I assume?
I believe so. Hold on. I will get you his age.
Okay, bad neck, bad back,
28.
Bad whatever. 28 years old. That's a magic number these days. And he's already got serious injuries. So, and I'm not knocking the guy, and I hope he gets better. I've never met him. I don't have anything against him. I haven't seen him wrestle the Invisible Man or any sex toys. I can't say that he hasn't, but I haven't seen it, so I have nothing against him. But seriously, another small guy that does a lot of gymnastics that has wrecked his body, because that's what you're going to do when you do all that shit. And yeah, when I used to be a kid and go to the circus and see the trapeze artists, or when I really was younger and had more time, I watched the Olympics. Especially the 72 Olympics was a big deal for the whole terrorist thing and everything else. But you'd watch the floor exercises with the gymnastics. And yeah, they're 145 pounds. That's why they can do 16 flips in a vault off the ground and land in the pike position. But that's not pro wrestling. And you don't look like a pro wrestler when you're doing that. It's just for these people that think that that's what it's supposed to be now. But that's why there's hardly anybody again watching. So instead of learning to work and simulate a struggle and a contest and possibly deciding that maybe you're not big enough and strong enough and impressive enough looking visually to be a badass, kick-ass professional wrestler, Let's follow in the example of all these other small children and get in the ring to do gymnastics and flips and dives in an unconvincing fashion until we cripple ourselves because we only weigh 150 pounds. It's a vicious circle, Brian. I'm sure there's a lot of basketball fans out there that wanted to play in the NBA, but they were born white and 5'7" with a big fucking stomach and flat feet. Should we change the rules of basketball to allow them to participate also? So, anyway, why are we surprised? We're going to watch the Dynamite Kid on Dark Side of the Ring this week. He put himself in a wheelchair, and he looked a lot better physically and was a lot more of a fucking badass than Will Ospreay or any of these young, small kids doing death-defying fucking cheerleading routines. That's not wrestling.
Ospreay was forced to vacate the IWGP World Heavyweight Championship.
How much does he weigh? World Heavyweight Championship. I've seen the video clips. Can he weigh 200 pounds? Is there anything on his Wikipedia that might suggest his physical size or stature?
I'm looking that up now. I know when I first saw him, he was slight, but I believe he's gained weight since then. I have him here as, if this is correct, according to Wikipedia, he is 6'1", 231.
What? All right, well, apparently he's bigger than he looked like.
He's put on weight like dynamite.
Is that he used to be quite a bit smaller? I haven't seen a picture of him lately.
Yeah.
All right, well, anyway, well, then especially if you're 230 pounds, you don't need to be doing all them gymnastics, because then that will blow your knees and back and everything else. You sense a common theme. Just cut off the gymnastics. We've seen it. It's boring. It's dreck. It's caca. It's phony.
To that extent, to be fair and to be honest, Ospreay's better at it than most. To the point where even though everyone does it, he stands out.
Yeah. To the point where he's now standing out in the parking lot with fucking bad back and a bad neck and don't know when he's going to be able to wrestle again at all. And he's 28 years old.
Jim, did you see the comments Kenny Omega made about the Will Ospreay situation?
You read me the one line earlier. I'm not sure whether it was in gimmick or not, and they're really friends, or if he's just as big a prick as I think he is.
Well, here are some comments. I will attempt to do them in the Omega voice.
Oh, boy.
Before I left New Japan, I pulled aside Ospreay and Jay White, Omega said. I don't even know if I should tell this story, but I will. I told both, this company, at least the Western expansion, and the pride of the foreigners, it's all in your hands. They're going to look up to you to carry this thing, so you've got to do it. I said it to Jay and Ospreay, knowing it was a likely scenario, but also hoping to light a fire under both of them. Omega felt the conversation lit a fire under Ospreay, who underwent a physical transformation and made a complete career shift. I'm going to stop doing the Omega voice, but his other quotes here, for Ospreay, he really came into his own, Omega admitted. He made a complete career shift, and he was going to be a fantastic champion. He made changes to his body. He made changes to his style, his look, his demeanor. He became the person that he needed to be the champion of that company. Unfortunately, becoming champion wasn't enough for him. He tried to fill my shoes.
Oh, for God.
Physically, even though he is one of the most gifted performers to ever step foot in a ring, there is only one Kenny Omega. And you can't fill those shoes.
Okay, he's got to be in gimmick now.
Now he has to be. He's
got to be in gimmick. There's no way that even an insufferable twat like Kenny Omega would say that with a straight face. But hold on here a second. Hold on.
What are you typing?
Will Ospreay. I want to see what he looks like now.
Let me finish Omega's quote while you're doing that.
Okay, go ahead.
Thus, now his belt is vacant. So perhaps it was always meant to be my belt, and my belt alone. That's not me making a firm statement as to whether I'll make a venture out there. Just to say that there is no one that can fill my shoes or override my legacy.
Oh,
when Ospreay comes back, he'll have to reanalyze who he is and who he's meant to be, because he's not meant to be me.
What?
He's such a douchebag.
Okay, hold on here.
Okay.
Will Ospreay versus Ricochet. Pro Wrestling World Cup Finals.
If you remember,
what popped up.
We saw that years ago, the opening 30 seconds of Ospreay and Ricochet doing a dance routine. That's not
Was that what? Whoa, wait a minute. Okay, then hold on. This could be fun. If I remember that, that was the hokiest goddamn thing I'd ever seen in my life. Wait a minute. They got all kinds of entrances. Here we go. They're about to ring the bell. And one guy runs and Ospreay jumps off the ropes with a fucking cutter, but Ricochet ducks under, sweep kick, duck, push each other off, flip into the rope, flip back, arm drag, flip to his feet, fucking just run by the guy for no reason. 2 cartwheels by Ricochet and a backflip over this. And now he backflipped, head scissored him, and Ospreay does a cartwheel. Ospreay does a ankle scissors, and they both vault to their feet. They're still wearing their robes. Okay, I've seen enough. Fuck Will Ospreay. You goddamn Cirque du Soleil bullshit. Hope I never have to fucking look at that again. All righty. I thought he was trying to be a serious wrestler.
I just forwarded you an email that contains a match for you to watch. Will Ospreay versus Walter.
No.
Yes.
No.
I just sent you the link. I mean, you can't watch it now. It's 40 minutes, but I just sent you the link.
I will watch that because this fucking little white kid against Walter, that could be a fucking German S&M video. Oh boy. No wonder he's got a fucking wrecked body and he's 28 years old. If he's doing in the first 90 seconds, 60 seconds, they did more phony looking shit that I've seen Ric Flair and Ricky Steamboat do. I've been watching them for 40 years. So there you go.
Our next question, Jim, sent to CornyDriveThru@gmail.com from Charlie in Starkville, Mississippi.
As a matter of fact, I'm surprised it took this long.
WWE's Instagram account posted a video of Nia Jax squashing Britt Baker on an old episode of Raw. What are your thoughts on the WWE posting this video right after she won the AEW Women's Championship? And do you think this is a lower-level employee paying attention to AEW and posting these videos? Or do you think someone at a higher level is paying attention to AEW?
Well, no. I think, and I'm pretty confident in this, that somebody in the studio either discovered or remembered that they had Britt Baker doing a job on their television and probably went to someone in the studio, perhaps even as high as Kevin Dunn, and said, hey, you want to put this up? Look at this. Hey, we'll get a tickle out of that. Yeah, and some chuckles. I would almost guarantee you for a fact that Triple H, nor Vince McMahon, nor definitely Bruce Pritchard even had the knowledge that there was a Britt Baker job match in their video archive. Somebody at the studio found it and said, hey, we can stir people up with this, and they put it up. And it's not a conspiracy theory.
All right.
Yes, they're obviously taking a jab at AEW, but it's not like Vince McMahon got the word, Britt Baker's the new women's champion. Search our archives. We've got to make her look bad. I'm sure I would almost bet everything I have in my life that he wouldn't even remember that Britt Baker had ever worked there before. And that's not a slight to Britt Baker. If you gave Vince McMahon a list of 100 people that had done TV jobs and not been under contract over the last 10 years, I don't know that he would remember their names.
All right. Well, there
you go.
That answers that. Let's get another question here, Jim. This one sent to CornyDriveThru@gmail.com from Joker's Gallery. I've been told everyone has a price. If so, how much do you think it would cost AEW to sign CM Punk? Also, how much do you think AEW would have to pay Steve Austin to come back for a 4-match 1-year run?
What?
Would the price be worth it for AEW?
There would be I don't know that there's a price for either one. I mean, if you got ridiculous with Punk, and said, we'll give you $20 million, he probably would figure out some way to make that work. But no, Austin has said, and I don't think there's any price that's going to get him back in the ring. If he wouldn't get back in the ring to work with Hulk Hogan, he's not going to get back in the ring to work for AEW at all, period, exclamation point. So that's not negotiable. Austin cares more about, he's actually come out and said he couldn't be the Rattlesnake anymore. He could have an old Dick the Bruiser match when Bruiser was the same age and there was no risk that Bruiser's neck was going to get injured. But that wasn't Austin's style, and he wouldn't be proud of it, and he wouldn't want people to remember him that way. With Punk, he said it, several months ago or whenever it was, I don't want to be another guy doing bad television. So I know he may have friends there in AEW. I don't know who is in his social circle, but some of the people may be his friends, but he has to recognize also that they are drifting aimlessly in search of presenting a coherent product. And would he's been so picky, walked away when he wanted to, has resisted other offers. Would he put the rest of his career and the way that people would remember him as a final impression in the hands of Tony Khan and the rest of those numbnuts? Even if they said, well, Punk, you can book your own shit, he'd have to bring in his own hand-picked opponents and do everything himself to make sure that he wasn't devalued. Or,
like a smart Cody.
Yeah. But even then, Cody he's put himself in the ring with some real pips. So Punk would have to have complete say over everything he did and everybody he interacted with and everybody that he worked with to make sure that they didn't do the same thing to him they've done with everybody else. And that's put him in some kind of goddamn hokey horseshit where they're playing, they're mad about video games, or somebody's mom is dropping them off in a minivan. Can you imagine? See, there's Mrs. Punk with the minivan. CM's here. Fuck.
All right. Well, our next question. Sent to CornyDriveThru.
So uncomfortable.
Our next question sent to
You were up late last night on that experience. You were up very late last night.
I didn't go to bed till 3 a.m.
This is a very difficult weekend for us. I'm going to do 6 hours of cameos tomorrow. So
is that how? Well, I guess, yeah, it would take a while. Now that I think about it.
It's not, I've never heard from these people before, and I'm not familiar with them. So I have to read the information, and then I have to put some effort into it, and each of them are at least a couple of minutes. So yeah, do 50 of them. It'll take us 5 or 6 hours to get everything right and make sure that it's shot well. We have standards around here.
This next question sent to CornyDriveThru at gmail.com from Adonis Weed. Recently, I have discovered a video on YouTube where Ric Flair basically takes over a WWE 2K14 event and completely ignores Jim Ross's panel moderation, which was allegedly the reason why WWE fired Jim Ross for not having any control over the event. Now, my question here is, was that the final drop that spilled the glass? Or was it a knee-jerk reaction by Vince? Either way, does Vince hate Jim Ross?
No, he doesn't, but Vince... when you have Vince as your friend, it can almost be as dangerous as having him as your enemy sometimes. But no, they did fire JR over that because Flair, and from what I understand, Flair was being Flair, and the people loved it that were there and listening to panel and the whole 9 yards. And from the way that I have heard it, even the video game people were not up in arms or upset or whatever, but Flair just commandeered the whole thing. There had been a couple of kamikazes involved, most probably. And since JR was the host, he took the heat, and he even said on one of his programs, he said, they fired me because I couldn't control Ric Flair. Well, explain to me who they were going to get to fill that fucking job. And yeah, and that was the thing, but everybody except The Office, apparently. The Office was mortified while the fans in attendance and the people in the civilians and the sponsors all loved it because it was Flair being Flair. And you can't control Flair. But he was telling a bunch of stories and just having a high old time, but it didn't follow the agenda that had been set out apparently by the marketing team there.
Well, going back to the question of does Vince hate Jim Ross, how would you describe their relationship from what you saw?
Well, here's Vince has that weird sense of humor and where he loves to, what would be the word, persecute, prosecute, perpetrate. He loves to fuck with people that he likes. And it's not even, sometimes you can't even really take it as good natured, but he means it that way in his own warped way. If you asked Vince McMahon, if he was sitting at his dining room table, what do you think of Howard Finkel? He would genuinely, honestly say, I love Fink. Fink has been a prince to us. He's so dedicated. What a great guy Fink is. And then they would just fucking make him miserable, doing angles and things where he had to be stripped naked down to his underwear on Raw, or they'd beat up his car in the parking lot or whatever. The constant ribs, the ribbages. With Jim Ross. Yeah, JR and Vince have been contentious sometimes because JR was one of the small group of people that would bow up at Vince in terms of, Vince, listen to it. Here's my side of this. Here's how I look at this. Instead of just saying, yes, 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 whatever. But at the same time, if you would ask, Vince, I love JR. He's been a valuable part of this organization. But he made him kiss his ass on TV and made fucking Dr. Heine jokes when JR had like 10 feet of his fucking intestines taken out. So for the people who have been around him for a long time, they know that's Vince, and you don't take it all the way to heart, but that's why a lot of the boys, are not fans, and that's why Vince has such a reputation as just being weird, because even if he really likes you, he will unnecessarily fuck with you and get entertainment out of it, and if everybody's not laughing, I mean, the push in the pool thing is not a horrible rib, but that's one of the examples. He has, if nobody's ever pushed Vince in the pool, as far as I know. I don't know how he would react to that. But, he's always wanting to fuck with somebody or do something, even in the production meetings or whatever, to call attention to something that somebody did that they're probably not proud of, or a mistake they made or whatever, and just fuck with them about it. And, that's the kind of thing that's done in the locker rooms amongst the boys, right? The heel locker room or the babyface locker room. Holy shit, it gets sharp. But it's another thing when it's being done on television or said on television or done in meetings where it's not just the boys, but it's the production assistants and it's civilians that weren't really in the locker room, weren't the boys. And when it starts getting that wide, then it's a little like, fuck, let him lighten up a little bit. And that's why I told JR that time after my back windshield got knocked out in Atlantic City, and I went home and didn't speak to him for 3 days. They didn't know where I was. Finally, I took JR's call. I said, don't treat me like fucking Finkel. Because I love Howard too, but they treated him like a flunky, and I wasn't going to fucking put up with it. And didn't. But that's, it's just...
But they did a lot of stuff to him, specific to Jim Ross.
Yeah.
Who, beyond being an on-air character, was a high-ranking executive in that company. They fucked with him left and right to the point where, after a while, it was like, why are you doing this? What was it? The thing where...
Dr. Heine.
Dr. Heine, yeah. I mean, that whole thing and...
But that's why, and that's... JR liked what he was doing and liked being involved and liked announcing and liked working with the talent and liked everything about it and was making very good money. So, and you liked a lot of the people that he worked with, possibly not all of them, but most of them, and has a grudging affection for Vince, despite all of the quirks that we've talked about that he has. But I often I wonder right now, I mean, I'm not knocking Jim Ross when I say this, but I know how old he is. He's 10 years older than me. So I'll be 60 this year. He'll be 70 if he's not already, whatever time his birthday is. Point is, You wouldn't be able to blast me out of my house with dynamite. You can barely do it now. And JR's got more money than the federal government. I know he's better off than I am. So I don't know. It's the same thing as some of the Heyman. I've mentioned, I bless him for it that he still wants to do this, but I don't know how these guys, especially with the state of the business these days and with all the things you have to go through and put up with, I don't know how that they can get the old passion and energy to get on a plane or get in a car and go to these towns and do this work and do these things on a regular basis still. And I often, rolled my eyes at why JR didn't just one day walk into fucking Titan Tower and say, Vince, I love you and you paid me a lot of money, but fuck all you motherfuckers. I've taken enough bullshit and I'm going home to by God, Oklahoma. Instead of his nice ways that he usually phrases things. Would
he have been able to put up with all of that if he hadn't worked for Bill Watts for so many years before that?
Well, it was a completely different atmosphere.
I know.
It wasn't that hard.
It was demanding.
No, but it wasn't. It was not hard to work for Bill Watts. If you did the shit you were supposed to do and had half a lick of sense, you wouldn't get yelled at and you wouldn't get that much heat, but you would learn like you were going to a military school for pro wrestling. The hard thing about working Mid-South was the trips and the fans. If the fucking 4,000 miles some weeks in a car working 8 or 9 times didn't kill you, the fans stabbing you or beating the fuck out of you might. But I didn't think it was much harder for me to put up with working in TNA than it was to work for Bill Watts because everything Watts did was successful. All the towns drew. The shows were fantastic. The talent was stacked up into everybody knew what they were doing. The matches were great and the TVs made sense. You learned a lot. You fucking got there on time, dressed like you were supposed to, did the shit you were supposed to, and got to the next town. And if you did that, you were fine. So it was much easier to work. All you had to do was be perfect to work for Bill Watts. That was much easier than having to put up with sitting there and watching that fucking fiasco with shit-stain writing TNA and those production meetings and the fucking falderall where everybody was running around trying to ask whoever they thought they would be more favorable to them if they could do something. Or WCW under TBS in 1990. That was hard to sit there and watch that, all those missed opportunities and talent going to waste and shows not drawn, not because of the wrestlers, but because of the fucking idiot that the corporation had assigned to run the thing and didn't know anything about it. At various points in my life, I've done all kinds of things in wrestling that were much harder than working for Bill Watts. Just be perfect and don't die. Get there. Make the schedule and don't get killed. That's all you had to do, and be perfect, and you were fine with Watts. I can actually admire that because that's what I tried to instill in everybody in OVW. The trips were a whole lot easier. Some guys were making money and some weren't because some had contracts and some weren't, but the trips were easier. All you got to do is show up on time, protect the business, and be perfect. And you won't get yelled at. You ought to hear the way I cuss myself when I suck at something or fuck something up. You can't hear it because I'm doing it internally because I can already hear myself thinking. I don't need to do it out loud.
Well, maybe you could do it on canvas.
That's a good idea. You know what? Maybe what we could do is we could have a painting made of Jim Ross and Cowboy Bill Watts and JR sitting there under the learning tree, and Watts is disseminating the information. I don't know if there's a photograph that exists like that, but you know what the good thing is about the fine folks at paintyourlife.com? They can combine photographs. So we can take a picture of Jim Ross sitting down and superimpose it over a picture of Bill Watts so he's on his knee, and we can have that painting done.
Maybe he'll want a painting of his favorite boss, though. Maybe it'll be him and Jim Herd drinking at TGI Fridays.
Oh, boy, howdy. The coonskin cap himself, Jim Herd. Anyway, If you want a professional hand-painted portrait created from any photo or combination of photos at a truly affordable price, folks, then you can go to paintyourlife.com and choose from a team of world-class artists and work with them on the details. It's a user-friendly platform. I've been hearing that word a lot lately, platform, where you can order a custom-made hand-painted portrait in less than 5 minutes. You can order it, and you get it in about 3 weeks. And you can combine generations of your family. You can have a painting of a cherished pet that's no longer with you, a special place that you remember. Put all kinds of people into painting. Make a Sgt. Pepper album cover. Whatever you want to do, they can do it for you at Paint Your Life. Birthday gift, anniversary gift, wedding gift, Father's Day. Coming up, a little candid photography. Regardless, at paintyourlife.com, you will enjoy and love the quality product that you receive. It's guaranteed. If you don't love the final painting, your money is refunded. And right now, our listeners can get 20% off the painting and free shipping. 20% off the painting and free shipping. I don't know how they make money at this. All you got to do is text the word DRIVE, D-R-I-V-E, to 64,000. That's DRIVE to 64 with 3 zeros, drive to 64,000, 20% off the painting and free shipping at paintyourlife.com. These folks are going to fix you guys up, clear some wall space, take some other pictures down because you're going to love this one from Paint Your Life. Terms apply. Available at paintyourlife.com/terms.
It
was that?
It is now time for a new segment, Brian's Corner, here on the Drive Thru. Jim, we're going to play a game. What's in your pocket?
We're going to play a game, and you're going to put me in a silo and say, try to find the corner.
No. What I'm going to do is I have 3 programs I've taken off the pile behind me of things I need to file. I'm going to tell you the card. You pick which show you would have spent your money to attend.
Okay, well, now hold on. Let's make this even more interesting. Give me the card, and I'm going to tell you, after each card, I'm going to tell you what territory I think it was and what year I think it was, and then I will pick the card at the end that I would have attended.
Okay, a couple of these I think may be easy. We'll start with this one. I'll go from main event down. Okay. No, I'll go from opening match up.
All right.
Opening match.
Just be consistent.
The opening match, Adrian Belazharan versus the Russian Angel.
Okay.
Second match, Kojima Saito versus Cyclone Negro.
Okay.
The third match, Jack Dalton versus Sam Steamboat.
Ooh. Okay.
Fourth match, Jim Dalton versus Johnny Costas.
Okay.
Like a good old-fashioned show. Then we get a tag team match, the Dalton Boys versus Sam Steamboat and Johnny Costas.
Okay. So this was probably not one of the bigger towns.
And the main event, which I think will give away the show, 2 out of 3 falls, Sputnik Monroe versus Duke Kiamuka.
Okay, well, we're in Florida, one of the smaller towns. I'm going to say in the area of 1965 to 7.
We are in Fort Worth, Texas.
What?
November 13th, 1961.
60? Holy shit. I thought that would have been Florida because of Steamboat and Keokuk and Monroe. I see that I was mistaken.
All right. I thought this would be an easy one for you. I thought you would immediately identify this.
Son of a bitch.
By the way, this program, it was originally sent to a fan. The fan's name, from Trenton, New Jersey, James Morrison.
Oh, my God. J.J. Dillon.
That's right.
How did you get that?
I've got a whole bunch of his. I got a whole bunch of different programs and magazines, and you look at the labels, and you're like, how did I get this? I got a bunch of old big-time wrestling and wrestling lives addressed to Les Milady.
I've got some addressed to Angelo Poffo.
I've got some addressed to Silvio Poffo.
I've got some addressed to Nunya. Because I don't want you to know who they were addressed to. How about that?
All right, well, you failed the first one. Let me give you another card.
I flunked out. That was the shits.
The second card, the opening match, Alex Perez versus Jerry Kozak. The second match, Mr. Fuji versus Pez Whatley.
Ooh.
The third match, Johnny Weaver and Scott Casey versus the Super Destroyer and Dennis Stamp. The fourth match, which may be the one that completely gives it away, Swede Hansen versus Ricky Romero. And finally, for the World Heavyweight Championship, Terry Funk versus Tank Patton.
Well, it obviously was the West Texas Amarillo territory. It was obviously, God, it would almost have to be, let's see, with Terry won in 76. I didn't know Johnny Weaver worked Texas in 76.
Lubbock, Texas, November 5th, 1976.
There you go.
And our final program, let me open this up to the card here. The opening match, Dennis Hall versus Big Bad John. And then we get a mixed match, a midget lady and a grown man.
Darlin Dagmar.
No.
Diamond Lil?
Cuddles Anderson and Jose Batancourt versus Baby Celine and Pepe Lopez.
Pepe Lopez.
What did I say?
You said Pepe.
Pepe Lopez, excuse me.
Pepe Lopez.
And then we get two main events. The second main event, for the first time in town, Ernie Catlad versus Suji Sito. And the main event, a grudge match ordered by the NWA, Ken Lucas and Bob Armstrong versus the Interns with Dr. Ken Ramey. Interns spelled INTERNES.
Yeah, there was an optional E with the interns back in those days. It's the Tennessee territory, I would think. And I would have to say that that's, God damn it, 70, 71, 72?
April 20th, 1970.
Okay. Birmingham,
Alabama.
But that's the Tennessee territory.
It is.
The Agulhas Welch territory. Okay. Yes, and you go back, Ernie Ladd made several appearances as a star even in the late 60s, early 70s in that territory, and they brought him in most of the time as a babyface for the African-American crowd. Pepe Lopez.
I didn't say pee-pee.
Well, you have a funny way of pronouncing things. For example, when you say things like cool whip or white, you say it white instead of white.
All right, guess this card. You ready?
All right.
Joe Blanchard versus Paul DeGaulle. Ted Christie versus Herbie Freeman.
Good Lord.
Bob Nandor versus Argentina Bogny.
Aldo Bogny.
Right. Billy Darnell and Tiny Tim versus Hardy Kruskamp and Bill Brummel.
Bo Brummel.
It says Bull, B-U-L-L.
Okay.
Jim Sixay versus Lord Blears. Billy Varga versus Seymour Koenig. And the main event, Fritz von Goring versus Nature Boy Rogers.
I'm about to say that that's California. That's 1955, 6, 7.
No.
No?
July 30th, 1958, the Olympic Auditorium.
Okay, so I was 1 year off.
But you guessed 3 years.
Well, I had a range there. All right, Billy Varga spilled the beans on that being California.
Count Billy Varga. There's a certain name. When I said Ricky Romero, I'm like, okay, this gives it away instantly. As soon as you hear this name, because some of those other names, you're like, okay, Scott Casey did get around and go some places early in his career. But Ricky Romero, that can only be one place.
There you go. He was so successful, he didn't have to leave.
You know what I've really become a big fan of? I got a few of these, and I'm trying to get more. Got one right here. The Nashville Wrestling News newspaper.
The Wrestling News newspaper, but they did like the Wrestling News Norman Kites.
No. Before that.
Newspaper. No?
Like from the 50s, the actual newspaper.
Oh, okay. Was it a newspaper? Because I've got some of the old Nashville programs. It was a larger size, but it was just a one sheet folded over to 4 pages.
I mean, in a way, this is that, but this is newspaper size.
Wow, I have not seen that.
Yeah, Matt Gossip by Nick Goulas. Let me see. Does it actually have a card here?
Well, he knew all the gossip.
He sure did.
For sure.
Does it list the actual card in here? Okay, here's the card. I'm sorry, I bumped the mic. Guy LaRose versus Danny Dusick. Cyclone Anaya.
By the way, wait, back up now. Guy LaRose, you know who that was?
That's, which Frenchman is that who changed his gimmick?
Hans Schmidt.
Hans Schmidt.
That is the biggest German heel of the 1950s. He was one at 1 year in the early 50s out of Chicago, was one of the 5 highest paid wrestlers in the country. And Danny Dusick was an off-brand synthetic Dusick brother that was based in Nashville for years and years.
Also on the show, Cyclone Anaya versus Tony Martin. And the main event, again, only 3 matches on this show in Nashville.
That was a big show back then.
The main event, history's biggest return grudge tag battle.
In history.
No time limit.
That's the way he used to say it. Nick would say, we got history's biggest return grudge tag team battle in history.
No time limit, no disqualification. 2 referees, both in the ring. Winner take all. The Fargo brothers were ordered to accept the return match or be suspended. Also, one of them must wear a jacket so they can be told apart when wrestling. The main event for the World Tag Titles, the champions, Jackie and Don Fargo versus Buddy Rogers and Tex Riley.
Wow.
How about that tag team?
Now, everybody's going, Tex Riley, who the fuck? Tex Riley was one of the biggest baby faces in the history of the Tennessee Territory in the 40s and 50s and into the maybe early 60s. And that's why he was in that match, because he was probably he was a bigger box office attraction as a babyface in Tennessee at that point than maybe even Buddy Rogers would have been. But that's especially fucking cool because Jackie and Don Fargo took so much from Buddy Rogers, and with their connection with Jack Pfeffer, of course, he encouraged their liberal borrowing of stuff like that. But the strut and the blonde hair and the jackets, they were a tag team version of Nature Boy Buddy Rogers. That's why they got over, and plus they could work. And so that's going to be it's either going to be 57 or 58.
Very good. June 18th, 1957, Hippodrome.
There you go, because they came in 57, the Fargos in Tennessee, and got over so strong. For the next 3 or 4 years, they would always have a run, then they'd leave and go somewhere and then come back in and have another run again. And they were remembered so well when Jackie decided to stay there and Don left. That's what made Jackie the guy for the next 15 years. And Jerry Jarrett was so impressed by the Fargos when he saw him. He was a 12-year-old, 13-year-old kid selling the programs in the Hippodrome in Nashville. When he got his territory, his company started, years later, he needed a babyface tag team. That's where the Fabulous Ones came from, because he just redid the Fargo Brothers playbook, but starting as babyfaces, and put Jackie with them to give them the stamp of validation. And it fucking took off like a rocket.
Hey, you want to guess who wrote this? At least who it seems like wrote this. I'll read the opening paragraph here. Promoter Nick Goulas assigned another great all-star card for Tuesday night at the Hippodrome. Did promoter Nick Goulas write that?
Probably. Either that or, everybody knew his style. It was always the same verbiage. The newspaper ads looked the same. The way the matches were sold. No time limit, no disqualification. History's biggest grudge tag team battle in history, etc., etc. Everything was hyperbole. Everything was over the top. But unlike Bob Luce in Chicago, these weren't just provocative words blurted out. Kill, death ape. hate, whatever, blood. This was somewhat complete sentences, but that was the classic old time Tennessee way of doing the programs and the programs between the wrestlers, the ongoing rivalries. And they'd start out with a match, then they'd come back with a return match, then they'd come back with a return match, no time limit, no disqualification. Then something dastardly would happen there, and they'd return that with 2 referees. And you'd get every week. So these guys would have matches for 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10, 12 weeks in a row. And they would keep it fresh until the ultimate blow-off, which was if the babyface won cleanly with no rebuttal, that was it. Otherwise, your program was still going. DQ, count out, no contest, heel gets a win by a fuck, whatever, you can keep going. The people will come back if you do your job right every week until the babyface wins. Once the babyface wins, don't book that match again. Go to the next thing. It's not that fucking hard.
Well, let's go to the next thing here, but that was our new segment where we look at old programs. Good job.
That was our new segment that called Brian Last Pulls Something Out of His Ass to stir this show on to victory.
That's right. Let's see what else we can pull out of my ass this week before we wrap things up. Jim, our next question.
I wish I had a fucking echo sound effect. Hello, hello, hello.
Our next question sent to CornyDriveThru@gmail.com from Rory in Shawano, Wisconsin. There are rumors floating around AEW potentially adding a 6-man tag team championship, a.k.a. Trios Championship. Jim, what are your thoughts on a 6-man tag team championship, and why has it not really been successful in the United States? Thank you for taking the time to answer my question.
Well, it hadn't been successful because it's impossible. It was especially impossible in the territory days, with a notable exception that we'll talk about in a minute, to put together if you had a champion and a set of tag team champions, and now you have 6-man champions. Most territories only had 20 guys, smaller territories, weekly territories, 20 guys. A place like the Carolinas may have 40 or 50 guys, but they're running 2 or 3 towns a night. That tied up a lot of talent. If it was just a intermittent thing, it was just a distraction. Nick Goulas had a 6-man tag team championship in 1975 and 6 because he had some belts laying around, and he did that primarily so that his son George could team up with Jackie Fargo and somebody like Tojo or somebody else. And they weren't defended very often or very long. It was just to give George a belt and have him, rubbing elbows with big stars. And the trios thing comes because that's what they call it in Mexico. So for some reason, the current modern day wrestling marks that are in the business have to name everything after Japan or Mexico. And you got that sock-faced fucking mushmouth announcer on AEW screaming Japanese names of moves that nobody's ever heard before and is not going to remember. So now it's a trios championship, but the only one that ever worked because it was natural and it made sense was when World Class started one when they had 3 Von Erichs. Kevin, Kerry, and David, and 3 Freebirds. Michael, Buddy, and Terry. And they had a few, they'd put it on the guys that Skandor Akbar managed from Devastation Incorporated or whatever, but that was a 6-man title that they did a few things with, and it meant something because of the unique situation. You had 3 brothers. But can you think of another one, Brian, that ever meant anything or lasted for any specific period of time? They had one in WCW, and that was the deal that they screwed the Japanese on, locking them in the locker room that time in Cleveland.
I was going to ask you, when it popped up during Dusty's booking run, was it a direct response to them doing it in Dallas and getting over? Because, I mean, obviously it worked with, like, the Russians.
It was a direct response to Dusty being able to get in main event matches, book himself and the Road Warriors.
With the Road Warriors, yeah.
Yeah. And then Dusty'd paint his face like the Road Warriors. And it was an attraction, and it sold. And then you had 3 Russians, and you had Dusty and the Road Warriors. But it didn't last long and moved on.
What do you think about the idea of AEW? Again, a promotion that does have a lot of six-man matches or multi-man matches on their show. What do you think of the idea of A, introducing another title, but specifically, since they do actually feature those kind of matches, introducing a trios or six-man tag team title?
Well, again, there's no rotten idea, just rotten application. It'll be the same as their other stuff. It'll make no sense from week to week, and it'll be dropped and then picked up, and then somebody else will have it. And then we got to watch more six-man tags where you got six guys in the ring doing cartwheels and tic-tackles and flip-flops, and we don't know what's going on. But, you know, plenty of championships. Everybody gets a title, just like in the WWF. They've got 3 heavyweight champions, 3 sets tag team champions, 3 girls champions, an intercontinental champion, a North American champion. I know I'm forgetting things. Now in AEW, they're going to have heavyweight title, TV title, tag team title, women's title, 6-man. Sure, let everybody wear a belt.
Every now and then, New Japan titles like Moxley's.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, bring the out-of-company titles. And then Kenny Omega can come out carrying 6 or 8 fucking outlaw belts. It doesn't mean anything when everybody's got one. If you walk down the street and there's 5-carat diamonds laying all over the sidewalk, what are they worth?
So you don't think AEW should do it?
Well, I don't think AEW should do anything. But, I mean, it's not going to be any stupider than anything else that they do, but it's not going to be any more successful than anything they do either, because they haven't concentrated on getting their real champions over like they should, except, again, for their static niche audience. So with everybody running around on the television program either having a belt or challenging for a belt, it's meaningless. But it's not like that if they don't do this, they'll suddenly rapidly be on the path to being a great promotion. And it doesn't mean if they do this that they're going to be any shittier than they already are. It's just not going to mean that much.
Well, Jim, I have to imagine if you were wrestling for AEW and you're working really hard and you see everyone else getting handed titles and you don't, you may want to look for an opportunity to sue.
That's right, but you know what? Here's the problem. There's not enough people in AEW that don't have championships to file a class action suit, so somebody's going to have to go it alone. But hey, Jelly Nutella, you're the lowest man on that totem pole. You're carved in right down at the bottom. So if you want to sue because they won't even give you a belt when they hand them to everybody else in the world, I know one man. This man is such a good lawyer that even he could make people believe that Jelly Nutella was a professional athlete. That's how good this man is.
Call Stephen P. News. If you need to sue. An outlaw mud show or two. Still to the rest.
You know, now that I've stuck my neck out and promised that Stephen P. New could do something that I don't know is possible for any human being in the world, making Jelly Nutella look like a professional athlete, instead we will just say, folks, if you have a problem, if you have been downtrodden, if you have been harmed, if you have been damaged in some way, you, your family, your social circle, by all the evil and avaricious corporations that are out there today, whether it be the defective earplugs that were given to our service members by the conniving folks at 3M, or whether it's that Johnson & Johnson's baby powder, or whether it's the nursing home abuse or the poisoned groundwater in Minden, West Virginia, or whatever the case may be, our legal beagle, the consigliere of the cult of Cornette, Stephen P. New at newlawoffice.com, 888-692-8084, has been crusading and rampaging for the rights, privileges, freedoms, and justice. For all the cult of Cornette listeners out there, only this man, Stephen P. New, is on your side. Only this man can get you what you truly deserve, and only this man is the man to get even whenever you need to in a court of law. That's Stephen P. New. newlawoffice.com, 888-692-8084. And as we've also mentioned, he's dipping his toe in the water as the official sponsor of All-Star Wrestling's debut at the Raleigh County Armory in Beckley, West Virginia this coming August. Jerry the King Lawler is going to be there, a full card of action. And New Law Office is the official sponsor of the Bash in Beckley. And we can't wait. We'll be there in spirit, obviously. It's not in my living room, so I won't be attending in person. But All-Star Wrestling moving into the big building in Beckley, they're going to cause all kinds of chaos. Going to cause talk and suspicion. They're going to give an exhibition. Newlawoffice.com, 888-692-8084.
That's right. Well, Jim, let's get a few more questions and then we'll wrap things up. This next one is Stump Jim Cornette.
Oh, boy.
Sent in the CornyDriveThru at gmail.com from Mike in Pittsburgh. Hello, Jim and Brian, listener for years. Keep up the great work. On to my question. In what was a still record gate for wrestling in Pittsburgh of 17,521, Dusty Rhodes took on Big Bubba in a cage match for $100,000 in the Bunkhouse Stampede Finals. As my father was there with his friends watching his favorite wrestler, The Dream, beat up on Big Bubba, he missed my goddamn birth. Jim, on what day was I born?
Oh, God damn it. Can I get the Midnight Express book?
No, that takes the fun out of it.
February. Wait. Hold on. February 27th or 28th, 1987.
February 27th, 1987.
There you go.
Wow. How'd you get it? Take us through the process.
I got it because the match where I threw the fireball and burned Ronnie Garvin's face was February 14th in Charlotte because that was Valentine's Day, and I was off for the next 10 days because I got married for the first time on the 16th and went to Hawaii until the following weekend and flew back specifically sunburned, by the way, for the match in Pittsburgh because that was the finals of the Bunkhouse Stampede, and that they made it a cage match, but Dusty wanted to juice it up a little bit, and so the fucking making fun of the WWF style cage matches where you had to climb out. Of course, the NWA was the door is locked and a decision is rendered and then the door is unlocked. Nobody can get in or out. And the WWF cage matches were climb over the cage or whatever. So Dusty made this one that the only way to win is to throw your opponent out of the cage over the top. And I was like, because, you had to get up on the cage and do a little bit of contrived stuff to think that even Dusty was going to throw a 370-pound man over the top of a 10-foot steel cage. But I was also verklempt because since it was a cage match, I couldn't interfere, and the finish was Dusty going over. So I flew all the way back from Hawaii, and it's the all-time biggest crowd ever to see wrestling in the Pittsburgh Civic Arena, the town that Bruno had owned and run, the classic wrestling town, and we set the all-time record. It was over $160,000 gate, and all I could do was stand there at ringside. So they actually worked the deal where they kicked me out of ringside since I couldn't interfere anyway. So I walked out with Bubba and then walked back and watched the match from the back of the building. Still got paid like I, would have on the house, which was a couple of $1,000s for that one night in 1987, 35 years ago. But still, I would have rather been involved. I'd rather Dusty give me the bionic elbow that night, baby. But yes, that's how I remember the date.
All right, Jim, our next question sent to CornyDriveThru at gmail.com from Matt in England. Ric Flair recently produced a photo on his Twitter of his insane schedule back in 1983 when he was the NWA champ. Was this the norm back then when you were the champ, or was Ric Flair an exception? He literally had 2 days off in 3 months. What would his payoffs be roughly for that period? And I have the screenshot here, but I think you've probably seen this.
Yeah, I've seen it, and I've seen other on the NWA letterhead, the schedule of the NWA champion. It'll say January 4th through 11th, Charlotte, meaning he's in the Charlotte territory for 7 days, and then Atlanta TV, and then whatever, and it goes like that. Several questions there. First of all, yes, I've seen it, and no, that wasn't unusual just because it was Flair. As a matter of fact, to be quite honest, that schedule was easier than the NWA champions of the 70s. Because if you notice, there's a lot of groups of days there. And it was always, especially if it was a big territory like the Carolinas, and if it wasn't a holiday where the champion was coming in special, you would book the champion into the territory for a week or for 4 days or for whatever. But by 1983, there were less full-time NWA territories than there were in the 70s. So it wasn't unusual. All the champions worked almost every day and only had 2 days off in 3 months or whatever. But the champion in the 70s actually had to go into more different territories and sometimes stay for only a day or 2 or 3 rather than getting a week in Charlotte and a week in Florida or whatever the case. And by the early 80s, the NWA champion was more often than not needed at Atlanta TV, which in the 70s, TBS was not as big as it was by the 80s. And yes, the NWA champion appeared on the show intermittently, but a lot of times it was on video. They didn't have to be there live. By the time that Flair was doing that, he was live. How many Saturdays at TBS TV is written down there on that schedule? There were more of them. You can count while I'm talking, but there were more of this. So you had a situation where in St. Louis, every 2 weeks or at least once a month, the NWA champion would be there. That was on a Friday night. So a lot of times you're having a guy go from St. Louis on Friday to Atlanta TV on Saturday morning and then going somewhere else in another territory on Saturday night, being there, then hopping to another territory that week, and then going back to Atlanta TV. And in Japan and other things were figured into that as well. Does it say Atlanta TV or is that grouped on that schedule?
It doesn't specify TV. It's grouped in like Atlanta Sunday through Saturday. But also like St. Louis, it's interesting because it happens on here early part of 83. It's always several days in Charlotte, St. Louis, back to Charlotte.
Yeah. Because at that time, I mean, obviously the NWA champion's going to go to St. Louis whenever it's running and whenever they want him. But so you'd have to break up your run and you couldn't do Friday night in whatever territory you were in. You had to get over to St. Louis and come back. I remember one night that some way or another, they had this was in 1986. Florida was still operating and they had double booked Flair to defend the title in the main event in Raleigh at the Dorton Arena and in either Tampa or St. Pete in Florida. And both towns were going to do well, and they didn't want to give either one up. So when we got there to Raleigh, to the Dorton Arena, we heard this fucking story. And there was Doug Dillinger. He was, because he was still on the police force at that time. He had a police car standing by. What they did was they had a Learjet at the Raleigh airport standing by. They rang the bell at 8 o'clock in Raleigh, put one 15-minute preliminary match on, then put Flair in the ring for the world title match, which he went 20, 25 minutes. He gets out of there at 8:40, doesn't change, hops in the police car. They put the lights on and they take him to the airport. He hops on the Learjet. He's in the air by 9:20. They ran the show in St. Pete or Tampa, whichever one it was, long as possible. He lands at like 10:45 and they've got somebody to do the same thing at the other end. He's in the ring before 11 o'clock. In Florida to go another 20 or 30 minutes. And then he had to come back home. Somebody, I think Tully or Arn, somebody drove his car back from fucking Raleigh back to Charlotte because he couldn't be in it. So, I mean, that's the schedule was insane, but that's why the NWA title in those days was the job in wrestling, except if you were Bruno or going to be the WWF champion for 5 years or whatever, the job that everybody wanted and only a few got was the NWA World Champion. You would make more money than anybody in wrestling except for Bruno or Andre the Giant, but it was the worst schedule ever, and everybody universally, even Lou Thez at a couple of points, everybody except for Flair always asked for it to be taken away in the end because they couldn't take it anymore. So yeah, there might be 2 days off in 3 months. There might be goddamn 12 days off all year. But you made more money, and then most of the time, whenever anybody lost the title, they took some time off to goddamn regain their sanity, but they were a lot better financially set than they were before they got there.
Yeah, Ric Flair wasn't an exception amongst NWA champions as far as schedule. He was an exception because he enjoyed the schedule.
Yeah, he never asked for he never said, no mas, let up. No, Terry Funk asked out. Jack Briscoe asked out. Dory Funk asked out. Like I said,
Kiniski asked out. Yeah,
Kiniski. They couldn't take it after a few years anymore, and they never saw their family. And Terry ended his run a little shorter because he and Vicky needed to work on things because it was affecting his home life, and that was more important, and they stayed together for the rest of their lives. But and as far as Flair's money, I mean, I can't, for that particular period of 1983, I can't tell you. I know,
but that's a period where everything was on fire. He's going to Texas every couple months. Dallas has never been hotter. St. Louis.
Starrcade 83 was that Thanksgiving.
Starrcade 83. St. Louis is still doing big business. Florida's still doing big business. And Flair's all over the place. So
yeah,
it was really a big year.
If I had to take a wild guess, oh, good Lord. I think it's raining on the Monroe brothers outside now. Good Lord, it's coming down. If I had to take a wild guess, I would say somewhere between $400,000 and $500,000 for the year. Some weeks would be probably 4 times as much as others. Like the week of Thanksgiving, obviously, would be 3 or 4 times what he made in the middle of October. But overall, and in 86, when I did see and was aware of some checks, some payoffs, I would have to think it was in the neighborhood of $500,000 to $600,000. What's that? 35 years later on the inflation calculator. Not too shabby.
It's amazing to think what someone like Flair would have done, let's say this period of time, 83 to 85, if there was a fully fleshed out merchandise mechanism for wrestlers like him outside of the WWE who were just putting together their whole protocol for merchandise. But imagine if Flair had had that then.
Yeah, and remember in 1986, there was no pay-per-view. Starrcade was on closed circuit, but there was no pay-per-view. And even Ric Flair didn't get paid any more than the rest of the top guys for TV tapings, unless he did a dark match at a syndicated taping. But TBS, you got $40. So you only got paid on house shows. TV was almost free. So yeah, he was doing $500,000 with no merchandising to speak of, no pay-per-view, and the promotion didn't really pay anything for television. If you did a dark match at a syndicated taping in like Gaffney, South Carolina, you'd get a real nice payoff because they paid everybody else $40, and they'd pay the dark match several $100 a piece.
Well, Jim, for our final question, let's stay somewhat on topic. This one was sent in to CornyDriveThru at gmail.com from Drew Farmer in Manchester, UK, but originally from Springfield, Missouri.
Okay. Well, sorry you couldn't find anything closer to Springfield you liked.
I recently watched a 2013 shoot interview with the Rock and Roll Express. In that video, Ricky Morton made 2 very bold claims I wanted to get Jim's take on. The first claim Ricky made was that his music single Boogie Woogie Dance Hall sold 1 million copies at the price of $19.95. This sounds ridiculous, but Robert Gibson backed him up in the video. Come on, this can't be true, right?
Well,
secondly,
okay.
Ricky stated that Jim Crockett Promotions' head of merchandise said in court that he stole over $1 million from the company from the revenue made by merchandise sales. It is the merchandise person's thievery that led to no one making money off gimmicks in Jim Crockett Promotions. Can you confirm or deny these claims?
I can confirm part of it, and I can explain some of the other. The single Boogie Woogie Dance Hall didn't sell for $19.95 a piece. That was the Rock and Roll Express fan club. You got the giant 6-foot life-size poster, you got the bulletin, you got the record single, you got some other miscellaneous rock and roll stuff. I have one of the fan club packages here in the vault. Those sold for $19.95, and no, they didn't sell 1 million. They didn't have 1 million members of or elsewise Crockett would have never gone out of business because they did steal the money. What happened was, I can't remember the guys that they had an employee that was working doing merchandise for the Crockett's, but I believe it was Francis's daughter or member of the Crockett family that was in charge of merchandise or the merchandise wing or whatever. And because some people were suspecting that the money wasn't going where it was supposed to, but at first they thought it was her and nobody wanted to fucking blow the whistle. This is what I was told. Nobody wanted to blow the whistle on a member of the Crockett family. And then later on, they found out it was the fucking guy, the employee. And they didn't make millions of dollars on merchandise because, as far as I can remember, the only merchandise that Crockett Promotions, they produced some, but the only thing that really sold well was the Rock and Roll Express fan club. Now, having said that, I can believe that they took in $1 million. That's what I was heard. Not that they had 1 million members, but that they took in $1 million. And $20 a piece, how many would that be? 50,000?
Yes.
Yeah, that's believable. They took in, and Ricky and Robert got about from what I heard, $21,000 a piece out of all of that. So yeah, they were hot, and yeah, 50,000 fan club members at $20 a piece across the whole country. That was eminently doable, and that's probably what they did. So the million comes from $1 million, not 1 million sales of $19.95 a piece, and that's the situation with the merchandise people. And yeah, that chapped Ricky and Robert's ass, and rightfully so, because they saw those posters and they saw those records and they saw that shit everywhere, and they both got about 20 grand a piece out of it. It was amazing. It was so hot.
That record was so bad.
Nobody cared. They just, if it had the Rock and Roll's picture on it, they would buy. If it was a fucking can of motor oil, Rock and Roll Express, I gotta have it. It was incredible. And yes, they did get fucked on that, which is one of the things that led to one of their split ups from Crockett Promotions for a while.
But that's one of the things when you look at wrestlers today versus wrestlers then. We talk about how much money these guys made. We're talking payoffs. Yeah. Because at this point in the 80s, Rock and Roll Express, as popular as they get, they're doing some merch, some stuff for Crockett. Of course, they're paid, if they are paid at all, they're really paid in a really bad way in terms of royalties, but there's no fleshed out merchandise mechanism there. Imagine if there was for Crockett Promotions 86, 87.
Well, just think about this. Just the numbers alone. Crockett had weeks where if you ran Greensboro, Philadelphia, Baltimore, and a couple other towns in the same way, you're literally selling 100,000 live event tickets in a 7-day period. So, yeah, especially like a bash week and with a couple of the big bashes. So if just everybody that had come to the matches spent $1 that week, you'd do 100 grand in merchandise, but they didn't have anything. And the shit they did have halftime looked like shit.
All right. Well, with that,
send us home.
And now my chair's squeaking. You can listen to the Drive Thru. It'll be back next week. The Experience debuts Saturday, wherever you find your favorite podcast. Don't forget, with AEW airing late Friday and us recording early Saturday for the next several weeks, we will have a late arrival of the podcast on Saturday nights due to the turnaround time, but it'll be out. The Jim Cornette Experience. Get access to classic episodes of The Experience and The Drive Thru by becoming a patron at patreon.com/Cornette. Get access to the archive of shows from the beginning in 2013. Right now, we are uploading shows from 2017. Join today, patreon.com/Cornette. The official Jim Cornette YouTube channel. Of course, go to YouTube and search for Jim Cornette for full episodes, clips of episodes, and omnibus collections. Over 218,000 strong on our march to 1 million. Subscribe today, the official Jim Cornette YouTube channel. You can follow Jim on Twitter at the Jim Cornette. You can follow me on Twitter at Great Brian Last. You can hear me on the 605 Superpodcast at 605pod.com. Available wherever you find your favorite podcasts. Don't forget about Cornette's Collectibles at jimcornette.com. What do you want to say, Jim?
I want to say coming soon a new website and coming soon a new store, but it's not up yet, so don't worry about it.
Say fuck daddy. Excuse me. That came out wrong. Say fuck GoDaddy at jimcornette.com.
Oh, fuck Daddy Cornette over here.
Say fuck GoDaddy at jimcornette.com. The drive-thru is brought to you by the law office of Stephen P. New, 888-692-8084. I'm so sorry, Steve. 888-692-8084.
Yeah, one of those numbers.
Get even with Steve.
If you have no more questions, Brian, you're free to go.
At newlawoffice.com. But until Saturday night on The Experience, and next week, right back here on the drive-thru, for Jim Cornette, I'm the Great Brian Last. Tally-ho!